I want to call the Mashpee Public School Committee meeting of April 4th, 2018 to order. First item of business is the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, we have a rather long agenda here, so we're going to try to move as quickly as we can on some of these items. Do we have any public comment at this point? Nope. All right, great. So we're ahead of schedule.
Don't say that.
Oh, I'm sorry, that jinxes us. I take that back. Next item on our agenda, we were going to have a presentation by Stella Bold and Peyton Donnelly, but I understand Mark Balistracci is going to present that on their behalf. So, Mark?
So I'm here to represent Peyton and Stella. They both send their regrets for not being able to attend tonight. Ironically, they both had something different come up for each of them where they had to be with their families this evening, and they send their most extreme regrets. They were devastated this afternoon when they were coming in. So I asked them if they could provide me with a statement just to provide you guys with some information regarding their experience with the Mashpee Enough student walkout assembly, and then their experience down in the March for Our Lives in Washington, D.C. So this is from Peyton and Stella. The backstory of our #Enough Assembly is a simple one, as it began as a spark in our law class. We had caught wind of a national school walkout due to take place on April 20th at 10 a.m. to spread the message of peace and promote gun reform. We were interested from the get-go. However, this particular walkout is during a vacation week, but we still wanted to take action. So we began research for an alternative method, which is when we discovered #Enough. A walkout dedicated to spread the same messages of gun reform as well as school security and mental health awareness. This one was due to be on March 14th, also at 10 a.m., a date that we could work with. On a whim of inspiration, we began basic planning that same night we discovered it. Who should be involved, who should speak, if we should include teachers, and even if we should include the administration. The next day, we focused on social media and how to spread our word. This was arguably our toughest task. And finally, after unexpectedly receiving media attention in our early stages of planning, we brought what we had to the attention of Mrs. DeBoer and Mr. Balistracci, who told us we had their full support, which we were and still are very grateful for. From that point on, the planning consisted of making speeches, a slideshow, and adapting to various roadblocks, one in particular being a lack of student speakers. 2 days before our walkout assembly, we had a snowstorm and decided to give us more challenges. What was supposed to be the March 14th walkout became March 16th. On that Friday, our nerves were certainly acting up as we stood in the auditorium stage looking over the empty seats an hour and a half before the event itself. It was hard to picture exactly how many kids would be joining us. However, when 10 a.m. arrived, 200 to 300 students left their classrooms and the empty seats were filled. The assembly itself, I like the use of this word, went swimmingly. With minimal mistakes from us and complete respect from our peers who decided to join us. I can attest that you could hear a pin drop as our students were speaking, and that tells you a lot about the way our students respected one another. We are also happy to report a generous amount of signatures on the petitions we provided dealing in raising school security and mental health treatment funds, for which we plan to send to the Massachusetts State House. Through the weeks after the fact, we had heard of a lot of great feedback, pretty much all good. Both of us can tell you that the feeling of pride for having organized something like this is nearly palpable. It was a truly eye-opening experience and one that we will hold with us probably forever. If anyone is interested in getting more detail on the process, both of us collaborated on an article for the Falconer, which you can read on the school website. It contains more day-by-day planning and more of our thoughts. I recommend that you check out thefalconer.net if you are inclined to do so. On March 24th, at 1 in the morning, we boarded a bus with 4 other Mashpee students, 1 Sturgis student, and 50 Nauset students to begin our venture to Washington, D.C. After dedicating so much time to this cause, it was amazing to head to our nation's capital and to gather with students sharing the same beliefs as us. We gathered outside the National Archives building with what seemed like millions of people. We would later find out there was a crowd of an estimated 850,000, creating a surreal experience for both of us. We saw live speakers and felt the emotion they carried in their voices. We chanted with crowds and took pictures with hundreds of signs. The March for Our Lives was truly a great experience, one that took all the work we had done for our Enough Assembly and amplified it. We are grateful to everyone who made this possible, from the teachers who wore our orange awareness ribbons, to the students who sat in the auditorium seats, to Mr. Balistracci and Mrs. DeBoer for supporting us from the first week after February break when it sounded like some crazy idea. Thank you all for listening, and they hope you have a great school committee meeting. And I can take any questions about the Enough Walkout Assembly if you have any.
Well, I'd just be interested in hearing from Peyton and Stella maybe before the end of the school year.
Certainly.
Not that I don't love seeing you, Mark, but it's
I
always
appreciate
nice to have some students come to our school committee meetings. So I'd love to hear any follow-up activities that they are engaged in, or in particular, I was interested to hear about the board that was formed from kids across other districts, and the collaboration across districts, because that's something that I'm really interested in. So.
Certainly, and we had talked this afternoon about them coming to the May meeting, so that's
Okay.
something we can definitely put into the works.
So go ahead.
I was just going to say, the only comment I have is, so I wasn't able to attend or anything like that, but I did hear feedback. I have 2 students that are in that school, and I heard a lot about it, and I heard it went very well, and that everything was put together great. And what I was really happy to hear about was that it wasn't made over political, because I know there's a lot of concern by a lot of different parents. There's a lot of back and forth that could happen there, and I think they did an awesome job of getting the message out, saying what they had to say, really hitting the target points without making it overly political and causing any kind of, potential messes there. And I think they did a great job. So
I would agree.
Please
They were
pass that
wonderful
on.
to work with in planning it, and we're very proud of them for what they were able to do.
Likewise.
So I just want to say I want to commend them and everyone that was involved in this, because I think it is important for our students to take positions, to be able to express themselves, particularly in today's world, and to realize that they are the future of this world. And so, I'm very appreciative that they're taking a leadership role in this endeavor. And, I encourage them to continue to do that. Obviously come to future meetings here, but also, be involved in the town. And it sounds like they're recognizing that need to happen, because these are important issues. It's not getting solved quickly, and anyone who can help express opinions, motivate change where change is necessary. I think that's part of the learning process that we're trying to espouse here. So I thank them for putting in action the great effort and work that everyone is doing here at our school. So thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, we're going to move up on the agenda because we have a public hearing scheduled for 7 o'clock. We cannot start that earlier, so with that, we're going to skip to Mr. Frederick Hanna III for his wonderful update.
Thank you for that introduction. Thank you, Mr. Myers. Good evening, everyone. There's a lot of exciting things going on at the high school. A lot of students taking the SAT and ACT for juniors, as well as sophomores as well. MCAS testing is going on for 8th graders and sophomores as well. And hopefully, with spring sports starting up soon, the weather can get a little bit nicer so that we can go out in the field. And also, in one more month, seniors are making their final decision, which is the college decision deadline on May 1st, as to where they want to further their education, and also, too, with a lot of students going into the military and workforce as well. So it's busy and exciting, but it's kind of a little chaotic, but I think it certainly goes to show why it's great to be a Mashpee, because a lot of kids are taking up all the opportunities with clubs, activities, and sports that they're offered. A lot of them are taking a part of them and taking advantage of that as well. This past Monday night was senior exhibition night. It was a wonderful night, an event that showcased all the senior projects that was created by the seniors. Students had the choice in the beginning of the year either to do a senior project that was based on trying to give back to the community, or if they want to do school to career, which was an internship if they want to go into a career or profession that they possibly may want to go into after high school or even college. So every senior created a poster, so it was nice for the community and parents and families to come in, connect with the students, and also too with the students as well, trying to build on their communication skills, talking about why they chose their senior project, exactly what it is, and kind of about why they're passionate for it. And overall, just giving the families and parents a chance to come and interact with the students, I think is an awesome experience for everyone as well. So there was a lot of diversity too with students, from one built a guitar to benches being made to presentations. So it was a really good night for the community to come and watch and see all the seniors as well. Today was the senior project of Cindy Costa and Jaden Urenius, which was the Credit for Life Fair. It's an annual event that takes place every year for seniors. Specifically, it's typically 2 seniors who take up the senior project. And the whole expectation is that hopefully seniors can see maybe that their expectations of how to deal with money in the real world is a little bit different than what they may actually face when they graduate high school. And the goal is to enhance financial literacy so students can see how to manage their money, whether they're in debt. And personally, I realized too when I started to pay more money for Netflix and TV and cable that I started to get in a little debt, so I had to retrace my steps and go back and quickly realize that I got to get out of this debt. And also too, so there was different booths set up throughout the gymnasium. So there was stuff for luxury, which was Netflix and Spotify and stuff like that, and then insurance, nutrition. So basically everything that you need in order to survive. So it was a really cool experience for everyone, and nicely put on by both Sydney and Jaden. This Friday is the National Honor Society Blood Drive, April 6th, which is the annual spring blood drive, and it's hosted by the Cape Cod Healthcare. Also this Friday is Student Government Day, and the 2 representatives from Mashpee are Jack Daniel and Adam Henschel. And it's a really neat opportunity because both of the students get to interact with kids throughout the state of Massachusetts. So there's 2 representatives typically from each school. And one of the cool things is that Jack and Adam will both get to sit in the representative who represents Mashpee's district when they're in the State House, and they get to listen to Charlie Baker speak to them beforehand. So it's basically you get to deal with the actual legislative process and see how it works. The people who run the organization that runs the whole event, they introduce different types of bills that are applicable to the students. So it may be something that deals with texting and driving or something similar that the students can relate to. And so Jack and Adam will work with the other kids who go up there as well, trying to negotiate whether to pass the bill or to reject it, which is a cool experience. This Saturday from 10 to 5 is the grand opening of the Mashpee High School store in the Commons. It's located right in between Cupcake Charlie's and Wash Ashore Bakery. It's a really nice location. It's a really nice location considering in the summertime with a lot of people coming down from tourists or people throughout the Cape who want to check out how cool Mashpee is. There's different types of work that is created by the students. So if people want to come in, check out artwork or stuff within the CTE department, there'll be students working it as well. And I know that the teachers and students who attempted to try and get this store in the Commons did a lot of hard work trying to get this in the Commons. And I know that they're grateful to the Commons for letting us have this store, because it really gives us a nice opportunity to showcase all the student artwork and student work that's created by the students. So it's really cool. And also too, from 3 o'clock to 5 o'clock, Regine McFarland, it is her senior project. She's going to be showcasing student artwork from the students that they created. So that should be cool if you want to come check it out. Hopefully, I know they will all appreciate if you can swing by and take a look. The annual talent show is taking place next Tuesday, April 12th. Auditions happen today, and I know a lot of people are looking forward to see some of the unique acts and different type of acts that the students will be performing. So that'll be taking place next Tuesday night. Today, 7th and 8th grade students took the English Language Arts MCAS and will be doing so tomorrow as well. And spring sports are starting up. There's some games that have been canceled already, so hopefully Mother Nature can correspond and let some of the students get out on the field. There's been trials going on in the back of the gymnasium, And hopefully, with the rain and snow, hopefully no more snow, students and the student athletes can go out and play and have some games. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Billy.
All right. We'll move on to the update on the Quashnet window project.
Do you mind going before 9 o'clock? Or usually we make you wait until the very last thing, I feel like.
I'm ready for some hard work.
Oh, wait, does she need a?
This is my new hat.
Oh, wow.
I don't really wear it. All right, thank you. Hi, everyone. It's great to see you here tonight. Hello. We are so excited to finally get this project underway. We've been talking about the window projects at Quashnet for quite some time, and the replacement windows for about 10 years. So this is really exciting for us. Actually, Monday, JJ Cardoza, the contractors, are going to start mobilizing their equipment. So they will be on site as of Monday. And what they're going to be doing is putting some temporary fencing up. They're going to start in the back of the building. So if you look at this map, here's our front door, the labyrinth. Here's the front door. In the back, JJ Cardoza has moved into the boys' locker room already. They've put their own lock on that door. That's how they enter and exit that area that's been assigned to them. They're going to put a fence along that back area. They're going to begin working in 3rd grade, and I'll show you that on the phasing map. But they're going to put some more temporary fencing where our garden is off of 5th grade toward the back, because that will all be included in the initial phase of construction. We'll see that fencing go all the way up to around the Liberty Wing. So that will be just temporary. When they are done with those phases, that fencing will move to the front of the building. In the back, we're also going to start to see, beginning next week, let's see, here's the tennis courts, if you're familiar with that. The big playground is here. Toward the back corner, below the football field, we'll start to see some construction equipment in terms of dumpsters and storage type containers. And they'll be placed here, as well as some other equipment over by that school garden, that area as well. If we take a look, this is the phasing map for all of the construction, and you can see how they're all numbered and colored. So we're going to begin the first construction and the replacement of the windows. I'm going to do this, really, even though I have my hard hat. But the 3rd grade classrooms, we have 4 3rd grade classrooms here in the back. Those 4 classrooms will be relocated within the building starting next week. Then contractors come in, replace the windows. As soon as those windows in the rooms have been cleaned, windows replaced, those classrooms will move back in. We go to phase 1B. 1B classrooms will be relocated within the building. Construction will work. This is that area where the garden is, where there will be some containers and other work type items. Same process. When those windows are replaced, classrooms are cleaned. 4th grade primarily will go back into those rooms. Then we come up to phase 2, which is the Liberty Wing. 5th grade, that will bring us to probably the end of the year. I do expect 1A, 1B, and 2 to be done before June, or before the end of the year, June 18th, roughly. Everything in yellow is all scheduled for summer. So that includes all of the classrooms around courtyards, and all of the bathrooms in the building are all being brought up to ADA code. So that will be quite a job for everyone. Right here in this courtyard, we have 3 courtyards at Quashnet. This courtyard is all yellow because there needs to be a paved path from one end to the other to make it ADA accessible as well. So we'll have a big boom truck that will be in the summer. They're going to have to pour whatever they pour over the side of the building. And also, in the front of the building, We will also have that summer work, and that's the superintendent's office. So over the summer, the superintendent's office will be moving to the high school, and Quashnet's office will be heading over to our friends at the Coombs School. So we're looking forward to that. 4A, 4B, 4C, all of those are expected to be done in the fall. And we're just, as you can tell, working around the building. There is a question whether or not we'll keep the front entrance initially. We might have to relocate it up by the music room door temporarily while they work in this area, and we're still working on that. The plan is when we do this sixth grade hall in the front area, there'd be a temporary construction wall there. And so that won't hopefully disturb the classrooms as much, and it will be a safer, just for construction. The gym area will all be done after the front as we go. I've been told that we need to keep the classrooms out of their original rooms for about 2 weeks. I'm planning 3 weeks, and hopefully that will work for everybody, including the moves. The cafeteria, the back of the building won't be done until later in the fall. That is section 5. And again, that will probably in the cafeteria have some kind of temporary wall as well where those windows are. In this whole process, it's really about school safety and how can we make the school safer than it is now. That front entrance is going to be redone to have a storefront type entrance. And we're working on having a double locking vestibule. So you have to be buzzed into the front like you are now, but then there would be, you kind of get caught in the middle there. You have to buzz again to then come into the school. And there'd be another camera there. All of the exterior doors in the building outside are going to be beautiful Mashpee blue. It's really a very pretty color if you want to take a look at it. And it will be helpful to tell our students, if it's blue, you don't touch it. You don't open that door. Exterior doors that are interior, like these 2 library doors, are going to be more of this slate gray color. And now that we can see out of the windows, we didn't want to block the view or have our eyes stop and want it to kind of flow. One of the other big design features I think will be really great is the idea that we want the school to expand, to grow. And right now when you look at Quashnet School, you see the stucco part, and then there's that dark rim that holds it down, kind of weights it. So all of that stucco is going to be replaced, and the band that goes around it is going to blend with that. So we're going to soar, we're going to go high. Nothing's going to hold us down. So just that whole image will look a little bit different and fresher. The windows are all, for those of you who haven't seen them, kind of this aluminum color, and all of the vents. So when you look at the front of the school, it's that aluminum type color. This is very important to us. We had the contractors here on Monday, and they showed us and demonstrated what the tools will sound like. It's charged with a .22 caliber type pneumatic. I don't know what they're called, to tell you the truth. I have the hard hat, but I'm not in construction. So, but anyway, it can sound like a gunfire when you're close to it, but it was really very muted. It was good within the classrooms. All of the teachers heard this, so we know what to expect for that sound. The other piece, though, is really about student safety. So every single contractor will definitely have a badge that they have to wear. It will include a picture of themselves, and that tells us that not only are they working on the site, but they have been quarried. So they will have had that quarry done. Pretty much we have picked out everything. I can't think of another thing, because it's even the little locks in the doors. We have picked out colors and sizes, and the bathrooms, when they're redone, they will have Corian counters, so they're really lovely. It's called Silver Birch with The sink will have this glacier white color. So the theme of the school will be that blue and silver and white, which Mashpee blue. So it's all coming along swimmingly. We're very happy about that. And I can't say enough about the communication with DPW, and Kathleen Laurent has been just fabulous to work with. Our architects, they've all been outstanding. But really the focus is on student safety and to make sure we maintain a solid learning environment.
When is the roof work going to happen?
The roof work is totally in the summer.
Okay.
It will totally be in the summer because that is so loud and so encompassing. It's a different company as well, so we'll have a crew on the roof when that other construction is being done for the
Okay.
windows. We did find out today that when they begin work, during April vacation, they will do a double shift. So they'll start at 7 and work until 10 at night. So the goal is to be done as soon as possible and the least disruption to the classrooms. So most of the noise would be later once school is released. Any other questions?
Are there going to be additional cameras on like construction equipment and other things that are going to be in place on the property to?
That would really be up to the contractor, not that I'm aware of. I know with the new design, especially in that front door area, we are going to be looking at installing additional cameras so we can see when someone comes into that vestibule. It will be more of a storefront design, so we won't have that solid panel that someone could hide behind. It's going to be all very open, so we have the visibility.
Yeah, I'm more concerned about the temporary equipment and kids'
Yeah.
interest in that equipment.
I am very concerned. We actually had a meeting today with the fire department and the police department. In certain areas, there will be porta potties on the property. Those are not necessarily locked, and those are something I am concerned about. We are looking at putting those within the fenced-in areas, so they're not like out on the field, for example. So that is something I'm concerned about, but we're very lucky to have a great school resource officer, and I know they'll be here the minute I call if I have any questions or concerns.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you for the update. Excellent.
Absolutely, absolutely, we're excited. Thank you. I just need all my little samples.
I wish I could have been involved in this part.
What are those hats?
What do I do with those hats?
Oh, it's very.
Can I get a hat?
You have to ask Mrs. McIntyre, that came from her.
Special ordered.
I was saying, it's probably not in the budget, so. All right, yeah. Kathy, is there a sign-up sheet up there? For the public hearing? Yeah. So we'll start the public hearing in just a couple minutes. If you would please come and sign up so that we can make sure that we take everyone. I would appreciate it. We'll give you a couple minutes here. While they're doing that, if we could go ahead and take care of the approval of minutes from the March 7th meeting. They're in your packet. If everyone has had a chance to take a look at them.
Move to approve.
Second?
So, motion by George and a second by Chris to approve the minutes as presented. Any comments or anything? No? Nicole, how do you
Yes.
vote? Yes?
Yes.
Yes.
And yes, so unanimous. I did forget to mention earlier that Jeff was unable to attend the meeting tonight. He's out of town on business. Originally, he was going to try to remotely call in, and unfortunately, his schedule changed and was not able to do that. So just to advise everyone why he is not here tonight.
Don, once you start the public hearing, am I not allowed to say anything? Or how does,
So once we start the public hearing, the committee should limit their interaction,
okay.
because it's truly an opportunity to hear from the public.
May I say something now then, before we start?
Yeah.
I just wanted to just thank you guys all for coming and say that last year I was sitting in those chairs, and it can be very frustrating as a person coming to comment here at this hearing that we are not really allowed to respond to you, and that it really cannot be a conversation. So I wish that someone had told me that when I first came in here. And I just wanted you to know, because I thought all kinds of bad things about George and Chris. And,
Oh, thanks for sharing.
Oh, you tell me.
mostly Don, but since he was chairing the hearing. But I just wanted to say that it's really important that you're here, and that we obviously all live in Mashpee and are all accessible to you via email. And so if you don't feel fulfilled or heard after you leave here tonight, please feel free to reach out to me personally if you need to. Okay. Thanks.
All right, thank you. It being 7:01, I want to call the public hearing to order for the Mashpee school start time. I need a motion.
So moved.
A second.
And a second, motion by George, and a second by Nicole to enter into the public hearing. So as Nicole mentioned, the committee,
Vote.
I'm sorry,
Vote.
and a vote. Nicole?
Yes.
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 Yes, sorry, I was trying to get ahead of myself here. As Nicole mentioned, the purpose of this hearing is for you to be able to provide feedback to the committee. So therefore, the responses from the committee will be very limited, if at all. But that is not an indication that we're not hearing you. This truly is about you expressing your opinion. The committee will subsequently be having a discussion at the next committee meeting on April 25th in regard to the school start times. So at that point, we will be taking into account and discussing publicly your feedback that you're providing to us tonight. So with that, any questions by the committee? All
I
right.
just want to make a quick comment as well. I just want
Yes.
to echo Nicole a little bit too. I will say that, you know, obviously, the administration's probably your best avenue only because they do this full-time. This is their job. If you want an immediate answer, well, as quickly as possible, I don't want to put you on the spot saying immediately, but quicker, most likely quicker. They probably will be your best avenue, but again, like Nicole said, reach out to Nicole, reach out to myself. You know, we both have Facebook pages, we both have emails, the entire committee has an email. Please feel free to do that. Don't feel like you can't ask us anything, you know, that's on your mind, especially when it comes to this. We want to hear about it. It's the only way we're going to know what's going on. It's difficult when we have these meetings monthly and, you know, we don't get as much feedback. So this is great, but please feel free to give us as much as you can.
All right, given the number of individuals who've signed up, I would ask that you limit your comments to 3 to 4 minutes so that everyone has an opportunity to be heard. With that, I'll start with the first person on the list, John Cotton.
Thank you, school committee. Thank you, superintendent, assistant superintendent, business manager. And actually, I have a couple quick questions. I understand you can't have a dialogue. I'm John Cotton, 30 Knobsco Road, longtime resident, Mashpee, love Mashpee. But that being said, My two questions are, what additional costs would be incurred by this delayed school start? And I understand I don't want the answers now, but that's my question. The other question I want answered is, what do we intend to gain by doing so? And you notice how I mentioned, what do we intend to gain? I'm concerned that with doing so, are we just, and this is what I've heard just by small talk around town, by kids saying, oh, we can just stay up later now, and we don't have to worry about getting to school early. So I don't know if that's the win where kids are going to be better rested, because that's one of the reasons why I heard this last year. That's my concern. If it's kids not going to bed at a reasonable time, that's not a concern of the schools, in my opinion. That's something that parents need to address. So I don't know what we're going to gain by doing so. So those are my two quick questions. So thank you.
All right,
Thank you.
thank you. Bethany Travers?
Hello. So again, my name is Bethany Travers. I live at 18 Windsor Way in Mashpee, and this is my first meeting related to the schools of any kind. I am a preschool mom. My daughter Sadie's in Mrs. York's class, so and I have a 19-month-old son, so I'm just starting this whole journey. I'm a little concerned about the proposed start times, especially for the earlier time for the smaller children. I don't know everybody else's situation, but in our family, my husband and I both work. My husband works full-time and I work part-time. And we have a little bit of a later schedule. We both get home late, which means we have dinner late, and the kids go to bed late, or later than other children might. I'm not sure. They go to bed at about 8:30. And even right now, getting Sadie up to be at school at 8:20 is a challenge. We have to wake her up. Normally she wakes up at about 8 o'clock on her own, so we have to get her up at 7. And with the new proposed start times, we'd have to get her up at roughly 6:30 at the latest, probably. And so I've been doing a little bit of research. I know that the committee did some studies regarding adolescent sleep, but what I learned from looking at American Academy of Pediatrics and also the National Sleep Association is that the smaller children also have very large sleep requirements, 10 to 12 hours. And so it's important for me that my children get enough sleep, because everybody knows that preschool kids and elementary school age kids, if they don't get enough sleep, there's going to be cognitive issues and behavioral issues, tantrums, meltdowns. And so that's why I'm here today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Kathy Lewis.
Hi, I'm Kathy Lewis, 44 Juniper Drive. I grew up in Mashpee, went through the school system. Now my daughter is in 3rd grade, doing the same. I have some pretty serious concerns about these proposed start times, especially regarding the elementary schools. Like Bethany, I also did some research, brought it with me. The current time is tough enough, it really is. And I know part of that is a parenting issue. However, moving the school start time then makes it even more difficult and challenging to get a child up, because you figure if the earliest bus time, right now my daughter's bus time is 7:25, we don't make it. It never, 7:25, 7:30, depends on if the bus is early. We don't make it. It just doesn't happen. So I drive her every day, which is fine, gives us a little bit of time to bond, be together, have family time. However, if this proposed school start time does happen, we're looking at, a 6:45 bus stop, which means an hour prior to that to get up, get dressed, get breakfast, any family time. You're looking 5:30 in the morning. Then they need 10 to 12 hours to sleep. She's going to have more time at after school, which already is not the best option in my opinion, but it's a necessity for a 2-family, full-time parent working family. And the cost, I mean, last year I did email Mrs. DeBoer and was told that the reason the proposal shifted to the earlier was because of an excessive high demand for before-school childcare that would result with later start time for the elementary schools, the cost of which could not be absorbed by the district's budget. There was significant feedback from families who felt the younger students, who tend to be up early, would be okay with starting their school days earlier. And nothing had been decided at that point. So I kind of let it rest to see how the studies and how the conversation was going to play out. I guess part of that was I don't see it as your problem to pay for my childcare. So I guess I was a little confused by that answer in terms of the before-school care being absorbed by the school system, because the after-school care is not really absorbed by the school system, at least what I use. I'm not sure if there is programs or are programs that are provided by the school system other than the after-school clubs, which go for roughly, an hour after school, I think. So that was kind of one thing I was like, that's a little not what I was expecting to hear. And then, again, going back to being up early, my kid's one of those kids that's not up early. So my concern was loss of family time. Because if you've got two parents that are working till 5, picking up the kid from whatever childcare they're at, they come home, they've got to be in bed by 7:30 at the latest to get the optimum amount of sleep. You've got to feed them homework. You know, it's kind of like, it takes away from what I consider to be very valuable family time that is limited anyways. And then don't even get me started on after school stuff, because then you totally eliminated any type of dance classes or any of those types of activities that, or karate, things that go later into the evening sometimes. So those are my concerns, and thank you for letting us voice our opinions and thoughts on this. I appreciate the time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can we at least clarify for everybody's benefit who maybe wasn't here last year, that the proposal that was on the table last year was to provide free before care? So that's why I think that might have been included in that response, is because that was kind of part of the proposal, was to cover any childcare costs associated with the change.
Right.
And, yeah.
Samantha Zeal?
Hi, Samantha Zeal. And yes, I was here last year. And yes, I still have 3 children in your school system. Yep, one being a kindergartner, 3rd grader, and a freshman. And as we sat here last year, ironically, I watched the school committee meeting today during my planning, because yes, I'm a teacher. And one of our things that was stated last year was that this was tabled for further discussion. One of you did say that this was going to be tabled indefinitely. However, you wanted to focus on the impact on the students, and 217 was to gather information. We did have a survey. My first question is, where's the results of the survey? I think that we should have that information as parents so we can be informed and we can have an opinion about what the community feels about this. So I'm a little disappointed that that information isn't given to us right now, because it should be, because we have the right to that information. Another thing I'm a little upset with is that the fact that since this is a connected community and communication is something that we strive on, I don't think it was really fair to have a 4 o'clock email last night to tell us about this hearing. That's just very frustrating, because there are obviously a lot of people here that have opinions, and I think as a connected community, this conversation should have been happening all along, especially since there was articles that were sent out in January saying that here's the new times that we're starting to talk about. So I find it to be frustrating. And if you review last year's school committee meeting, the concerns are the same as the high school parents having a later start time and having a child that plays 2 sports. And we are in a league where we play Hull and Norwell. Like, for example, baseball, they're traveling next week across the bridge. That's now 1 lane. So if we venture that next year with late start times, these children first of all, they're going to miss 90 minutes out of school so they can travel to these locations off Cape And if it's during the springtime, we have travel concerns. So now these kids aren't getting home until 10:30, 11 o'clock at night, which they still have their homework to do. So even having a school start time at 8:30, I don't see the benefit in 1 hour. So that really troubles me because kids are still missing time on task. Kids are still missing time from learning. When we shift that hour, you're just shifting everything to an hour. And to echo what Mr. Cotton said, yeah, that through the kid's perspective, oh wow, I get to go to school later, I have an extra hour. That's how they see it, just have a conversation with my child. I think we should survey the kids, since it is their education, to see what their input is. In regards to the younger kids, on the flip side, being the mom of 3, right now, the bus is 7:30 to get to an 8:30 school start. 7:30 school start, my children will have to get on the bus at 6:30. It's still dark at 6:30. I don't know how we expect elementary students to be on a bus that early to go to school. In addition, on the flip side, then they'll get out at 2. And that is additional childcare for many of us, and many of us rely on that older child to provide that daycare. So I just think that we really need to really analyze this and get the information so we can have an informed decision and look at both sides of it. Because what is 50% of our children in Mashpee are in the elementary schools. What benefit is this doing to them? They are our future. High school kids, they need to get prepared for the real world. They're not going to turn around and say, oh, I got up at 8, I could go to school at 8:30, I can't make it to a 7 o'clock work time. It's just very frustrating because we're trying to teach our older kids how to become responsible and how to time management, but yet we're stepping back and saying, oh, here, you need some more sleep. Let us parents handle the sleep at our homes. So yeah, I'm very upset with this. I'm very frustrated. Frustrated with the lack of communication, and I'm frustrated with the lack of information. So I hope moving forward that you can answer all of our questions, and let's see the data. What are the pros for the younger kids to go at a younger time? And again, as I said a year ago, if we're really concerned about our children, let's look at our school day. What can we do within our school day in order to maximize their learning? And you know I'm a PE teacher, I'm a PE advocate. I say get them moving and look at the nutrition, look at the breakfasts. That all has relevant studies shown to improve educational performance and to improve behavior problems and to improve attendance. Look at what you guys can do during the school day to improve our children, and let us handle what we can do at home to get our kids to school.
All right,
you.
thank you.
Thank you.
Michelle Boyd?
I'm
Hi.
Michelle Bird. To be honest, when I was signing this sheet, I thought it was for attendance.
Oh.
I'm not prepared. But I do have, I have twin boys that are at KCC. They've been there, this is their second year. They're in kindergarten. And as it is right now, it's so difficult to be ready. I drive them to school every day, pick them up every day. Love the teachers. I'm so pleased with our school system, but an earlier start time would just be so difficult. I literally have to. It's just hard as it is right now, and we leave the house at 8. I can't imagine leaving at 7. It just 7:15. It just wouldn't work for us. So thank you for listening. And also, my only question. I did email Patty yesterday, but it was just about the survey. I know that there's a paper survey and the electronic. I know it takes a while to get all that in together. I understand that. But it would be nice to know what the parents thought. So thank you for your time.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, so I can assure you that up until about an hour ago, I was up to my neck in survey data. So there really isn't a holdup. I think what we probably should have done was let you know that we sent out 517 surveys to the people who didn't respond to the electronic survey, because I wanted to make sure we gave everybody a chance to participate. So we got 2 more surveys in today. So I included those because I felt like the public meeting, the hearing was tonight, and so I wanted to make sure that it all got looped in. So if you stick around, we have, later on the agenda, we're going to be dealing with the special questions. I did not have time to process all 40 questions for the meeting tonight, but I'll be working on it. So if you want to stick around, you can see that, and then we can make the PDF of those charts available on the website after the meeting too, so you can see it. Okay. Thanks.
Stacy?
Hi, good evening. My name's Stacy Mayer. I have a son in 6th and a son in kindergarten. I agree with Michelle. I thought we were signing a attendance sheet, but I do. It's what I get for reading. I do want to just commend the school committee. I think you guys do a fantastic job. I know it's not an easy task. As far as school start times, I know you're going to decide what's best for our children and what's best for their well-being and their education. So I just wanted to say thank you.
Thank you. Jessica Burns?
Hello, good evening. Thank you for giving us an opportunity to speak. I have a kindergarten student and I have a 5th grade student, so there's quite an age gap between my 2 children. I also teach 6th grade in a neighboring district. In the district where I work, we have gone through this over and over again, time change, and we have tabled it because you cannot equally accommodate every family, every child. What I think is happening before us is a Band-Aid approach to fixing the high school, but we're costing our younger children. As a 6th grade teacher, my students come into school to start at 7:50 and they're still exhausted. I can't imagine having them come in at 7 o'clock to start their day. My older son is being pulled out of bed every morning at 6:30 to get here. He knows that's what he's going to have to do and go to the high school to do that. We talk about career readiness, college readiness. When I went to college, I had to take 8 o'clock classes because that's what you do when you're a freshman. Maybe I picked the wrong profession, but I'm up at 5:30 every morning, and my husband's out the door at 5:30 every day. He's an electrician. I think a lot of people in this town are hardworking families, but they're also laborers, they're teachers. They have jobs that are not 9 to 5. Most of our children might not have jobs that are 9 to 5. So to prepare them and just let them sleep in the morning is not giving them a chance to face real life. I think we're coddling them, and I think we need to teach them that real life is you go to bed, you're responsible. Parenting could be an issue. I don't have phones for my children in my home. I don't plan on it. TV's off at 7 o'clock at night. They're in bed at 7:30, 8 o'clock. I just think that there's things we can fix and we can't fix, and we have to look at the general population. A 5-year-old at a bus stop at 6:45 in the morning sounds like the most ridiculous thing to me. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Nadja?
I'm Nadia Carboni. I have a son who is in 1st grade. I have another son who is going to be in junior kindergarten next year, and then another future Falcon. My concern with the early start time really is I'm having a really hard time wrapping my brain around how we're prioritizing, our high school kids up against our elementary school kids. Who gets to sleep more? And I just don't think that we have the answer for that, and I just don't think that there's enough information for us to move forward with any kind of proposal at this point. I can't imagine my 7-year-old standing outside at 6:30 in the morning when it's dark in the middle of winter to get picked up by the bus. I'm lucky that, we're flexible, that, I can make it work, but that's just ridiculous. I mean, seeing these little kids, a kindergartner, standing outside at 6:30 in the morning, it's not going to work for our family. I just don't support it. I also would like to second the results for the survey. I'd love to hear what everyone else has to say. And I also want to echo the fact that the communication is just lacking. Perhaps I've been living under a rock, but I pride myself on staying on top of my children's matters with school. And I just don't think it was very transparent. I think that, we're kind of like on this need-to-know basis, and I would have liked to have everything really bluntly laid out what it was that we're doing and talking about. Maybe I'm just a new parent to the school system, but I think I would appreciated a little more information about what it was that we were talking about and doing here. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sarah?
Hey there, I'm Sarah Fennell, Mashpee resident, of course. I have a kindergartner and also a preschooler. I would probably just echo what some of the other folks are saying about how it is to get the young kids out of the house in the morning. I actually have two naturally early risers. They're usually up between 6 and 6:15, and they spend 20 to 30 minutes of sort of unstructured playtime, which I'm sure that we could all agree our kids do not get enough of. It's a really good way to start their day. But beyond that, I mean, 20 minutes goes really fast of reading a book or whatever. And then between breakfast, getting dressed, and my husband actually takes my daughter to school, leaving at 8 o'clock. It's pretty packed from then on. So there's not really a whole lot of time to spare. So to have any sort of similar routine with an earlier start time, I would be setting an alarm for 5 o'clock for my daughter, and that just seems so ludicrous to me. Waking up a 7-year-old at 5 o'clock so they could have a few minutes to do something other than, cruise out the door. And that is my kid that follows my directions better. I have a slowpoke coming down the road here, my 4-year-old, so I can just imagine my home turning into a boot camp in the morning just to get to school on time, and I don't like the way that looks. I don't have high schoolers, so I can't speak to that, but I do have nieces and nephews, and I will say, natural consequences have a lot more. They have to take a lot more control of that in their home, and I definitely support that approach. They have a lot more control of their time, whereas I'm on top of my 5 and 6-year-old to get things done in the time that they need to get it done. So someone mentioned, what do we stand to gain? So I feel like in my house it would be taking an hour of sleep from my children and giving it to a high school kid who could possibly manage that time a little bit better on their own compared to my small children. And then, as a couple other folks have mentioned, I think family time would definitely suffer. My husband has a pretty normal schedule. He drops my daughter off and goes to work and comes home around 6 o'clock. My kids already go to bed at 7 o'clock, so I don't think that I could put them to bed a minute earlier without them thinking that's pretty weird, going to bed at 6:45. So he comes home, we have dinner together. That's very important to us, and then it's bedtime. So by losing an hour in the morning, I think we would either have to sacrifice really rushing and pressure to hurry, or a half of his family time that he gets to spend with his kids, and I think that's really, really important to me. It's hard to imagine sacrificing either of those things, to give a high schooler who may just stay up an hour later and not get the extra sleep that we're all hoping that they get. So, I think the question of what do we stand to gain as an entire community is a really, really important one.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sharon?
Good evening, Sharon DiFrancesco. I hadn't planned on speaking tonight. I was going to come and be a fly on the wall was the big plan, and not knowing what the format was going to be and not truly having time to prepare anything anyway. Truth of the matter is, though, I could speak for 2 hours about the reasons I think we should move the bell times. The science is overwhelming, and you've heard me say that more than once. This is about the kids. I don't think we can afford to take our eyes off that. This is about the kids. Now, somebody made the great point, are we pitting the well-being of the elementary school children against the well-being of the middle and high schoolers? Well, if you're going to have 2 different bus runs, yes, we are. If we don't want to have everybody starting school at the same time, we need those 2 different bus runs. This is what we're looking at. Who can better handle the earlier time? I'm not going to argue that point right now, but I will say that there does seem to be maybe a dearth of understanding about all the reasons that the teens need the sleep. I hear they will squander the time they're given. But research after research, study after study, I could bore you to tears with the improvements in attendance, both absenteeism and tardiness, improvement in grade scores, depression incidences drop, car accidents frequency drops, suicide ideation drops. There's so much to be gained by giving those teens that extra hour. And also, what I haven't heard tonight was talk about the shift in circadian rhythms that does happen when kids, and it shifts. It can happen between 10 and 13 maybe, and can last all the way to 26. Now, we always hear, I'm getting my kid ready for school. They need to know if they have to be at work for 7, then they have to get up for 7. This is a window that we get one shot at, these teen years. And I'm not trying to dismiss the need of a good childhood too, in the preschool and the elementary school years. But the shift for the teens happens. They can't get to sleep until a later hour, and I know I'm preaching to the choir on a lot of this, but they can't get to sleep until later. They need their, average 9 hours of sleep. They're not getting it. And it's like waking adults at 4 a.m. every day for years. Do you think about that? If somebody woke you up at 4 a.m. every day after you went to bed at maybe 10, which you probably can. Teenagers can't generally get to sleep by 10. I'm fortunate. Mine are eking toward 10, unfortunately, but they haven't gotten there yet. I expect to see them after 10, maybe inside a year, if what I've read is true. So the teens are walking around sleep deprived. That is just a fact. It's chronic and it's dangerous. I don't know what the answer is. I'm not going to sit here and say the answer is make kids stand at a bus at 6 a.m. Make kids under 10 stand at a bus at wait for a bus at 6 a.m. But we really do, you have a full plate. I don't know how else to say it. I've probably gone over time, but there was one more thing I wanted to say, and I'm waiting for it to jump out at me, which was, no, it's gone.
All right.
Well, thank you for the opportunity. This is a critical conversation. It's right up there with, child seatbelts and child labor laws and cigarette smoking. This is no small thing. And it's interesting that most of the people tonight here at this microphone, most, not all, but most, were parents of elementary school kids who will become, they're going to be teenagers, and you're going to be in my chair, and you're going to be saying, oh my gosh, my kids are a mess. I feel like the worst Mom of the Year award every morning when I have to drag my kids from dead sleep, from a sleep that they desperately need for learning, for performance, for mental health. And I have to do it every morning. And I mean, it's one of the reasons I toy with homeschooling, sadly. I love the teachers at Mashpee. I do. I've been here since preschool, and I'm in the middle school, and I'm happy with the teacher, and I wish my kids were performing at their best at a time when they need to be at their best. So when I am ready, unfortunately at 18, to send them out, that they had every opportunity. They're not getting it right now. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Ron.
Did anyone else come in after we did the sign-up sheet that wants to talk?
I
if you would come up to the microphone and introduce yourself.
Hi, how are you? My name's LaToya Green. I'm a lifelong Mashpee resident. I have 2 children that attend Mashpee Public Schools. They're in 1st and 2nd grade right now. We own a home here, so I do anticipate that they'll attend high school here, unless they attend tech or somewhere else. But hopefully they're here all the way through 12th grade. So I was here last year when you were toying with the idea of making the start time later. I was against that idea. It wouldn't work for my family because of work issues mostly and getting them on the bus, and then found out it wouldn't work for the district because of budget constraints, so it was a win-win. This year they want us to move it earlier for the younger kids and still push it later for the older kids. And I've come back this year for a few different reasons. Online discussion, I'm sure everyone saw today, got heated. If you guys wanted to analyze anything, you could look at the comments and get a quick review of what Mashpee thought. There was a friend that couldn't make it that asked me to share her concerns. I don't know if anyone was able to. Did you? Did you talk? So she's an HR director over at Cape Cod Healthcare, and she said that she has hired kids right out of high school for several positions over, and that not any position at any of her hospitals starts at 8 o'clock or 8:30 a.m., and that any child or individual wanting an employment should be ready and prepared to start work at that time out of high school. They come for summer jobs, they come for internships, and they come for full-time employment. So that was her message. My message comes from a little bit of a different standpoint. One, I do think kids should be prepared right out of high school to go to work. In the small towns that we live in on Cape Cod, that's life. It's what I grew up in, the family I grew up in, the life I moved into. Even in college, we go to school and you get up early, you make it work. People have become doctors, lawyers, presidents, getting up and attending school at that time. They say that you get more sleep and you get a better education, you learn more. And I was pushed to question if that's the only way that you get a better education and you learn more. If sleep is controlled by your educational system and not at home, then what else? What else grays that boundary line? I mean, because sleep is controlled at home. You know, kids are going to either manipulate that line or not. You can give them a 9:30 start time, and it doesn't matter if their parents aren't enforcing that. So sleep has to happen at home. And then you get to school, 7:30, 8:30, 9:30, and someone else in the audience did it. What are we doing at school that can maximize their education? Are we an innovation school? Are we doing everything that we can during those 6 or 8 hours? If we extend the elementary school times and they're in school for 12 hours a day, are those young kids going to be able to excel? By the end of those 6 years in 12 hours a day in elementary school, that shorter, lessened 9:30 start time of a high school, is that going to make a difference? Are they going to even like school by 9th grade? And then it also moved me to think, this is the second time I've been here to speak on this discussion. How many times have you guys been to this table to speak on this issue? Which, now that we've got a whole town riled up about, we know that we have so many different opinions, we clearly don't have the right answer for that works for everyone. So we obviously don't have anything we can settle on yet. What else could we work on right now that we can improve our kids? What can we do right now? Can we become an innovation school? Could we focus on more programs for them? Can you guys focus on drugs? Can you focus on teen pregnancy? Is our dropout rate growing? Do we need to do more things to bring them in? What can we do to help the kids right now? Because this discussion, even though we keep bringing it back to the table, isn't coming up with a solution that makes everyone happy. So we need to focus on things that we can do for the kids that work for the kids right now. Because what we're doing is losing kids every year, while in 2 years, we've argued about one thing that hasn't helped any kids. So thank you for my time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else? All right, the superintendent has a couple emails that she had received that will be read.
So some of the parents who asked that this be shared, so Katie Diaz just wanted the committee to know that she's against changing the start times. Kristen Mitchell Hughes would like me to read, as the mother of a 5-year-old boy currently enrolled in the Mashpee Public Schools, I believe changing the school start times would take a huge toll on working families like mine. The earlier start time would mean that I and a majority of other working parents would now need to pay for our children to be in an after-school programming for an hour longer every day. For many, this would create a financial hardship. This would also lead to excessively early pickup times for these younger children. My child's bus currently picks him up at 7:30 a.m. If the earlier start time is passed, he would need to be at the bus stop at 6:45 a.m. My first concern with this is that it will compromise the sleep that these young children need to thrive in the classroom. These kids need quality sleep just as much as the older kids. And the bottom line is that young brains that aren't getting enough sleep simply don't learn well. And on a somewhat selfish note, the earlier start time will ultimately take away what little precious time in the morning my husband and I get to spend with our son before we leave for work. As a working mom, I consider every single minute of additional time with my child to be extremely valuable. And she would like this to be read. I have one more that came in I just wanted to read. This is from Jamie Vincent. As a parent of a first and fourth grader who attend Mashpee Public Schools and I want to share with you my opinion on the most recent proposal for school start times. While I understand research is clear that later start times for high school students is critical to learning and development, the research is not clear about whether earlier start times would be beneficial or detrimental to primary or elementary students. While I think a later start for middle high school students is imperative, without further studies regarding the effects on primary elementary students and earlier start times, I feel one way to resolve this issue would be to push all current school schedules ahead or begin the high school start time after the current elementary start times. I understand the need to address a later start time for high school students, but feel this proposed schedule does so at a detriment to our younger students. Thank you for allowing me to share my opinion. And technically, we had one more. Do you want me to read one more?
Which one's that one from?
Dominique Fougere.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, and then this one, which was at 7:12, from Dominique Fougere. As a mother of 4 children in Mashpee, I appreciate your research and best practice for educating our children. However, I strongly believe the current interest in changing school start times will not be beneficial for the majority of our community. Countless conversations with friends and family in town have working parents worrying about how to balance work and funding before and or after care for elementary-aged children. As a high school educator in a neighboring district, my students were polled and personally stated that a later start time would result in a later bedtime. Thus, the intention of gaining more sleep for the adolescent brain becomes void. Have our Mashpee students been surveyed? The switch in start times is not accommodating for most families with both working parents and especially those with young children. As of now, I am out of the house before 6:30 a.m. and my husband puts our children on the bus. It is already difficult to get a first and third grader up, dressed, fed, and ready for their 7:30 bus. If the start times change, they would need to be up at 5:30 to be ready to stand in the dark at 6:30. I guess I would need to wake up at 4:30. As a teacher, I am fortunate to have the ability to make it home to get my girls off the bus on most days. Changing the time would require many children, including my own, to go to aftercare every day. This would result in a much longer and unnecessary school day for many children. If anything, at their age, they need less structured school time and more time for creative and free play. Additionally, aftercare would cause a financial burden on working families like my own. In a few short years, my oldest daughter will be able to watch her 3 younger siblings after school. Many families rely upon this child care to alleviate financial burdens. If the start times of Mashpee Middle High School and the elementary school switch, this is no longer a benefit to many families. Okay, I've got 2 more paragraphs here. While I believe there is merit in adolescent students gaining more sleep, I am not sure if a later start time is the solution. Many college courses and jobs begin at 8. The ability to sleep late is not always a reality. I am not devaluing sleep. However, high schools should prepare students by modeling accountability and responsibility. I am sure if our culture and adolescents spent less time overstimulating their brain with technological devices, they may be better prepared to learn. But that is another issue. What seems like a solution for one age group becomes a burden for another age group, with added stress to several local parents and families. Some of the reasons my husband and I moved to Mashpee from Sandwich were the enriching educational opportunities, full-day preschool, and free extracurricular clubs. As a teacher and mother, I have the best interests of my children and all students and expect the Mashpee School District to have the same. That's it.
All right, has everyone had an opportunity to be heard?
Move to close the public hearing then?
Have a motion to close the public hearing. Do I have a second?
Second.
And I have a second. All in favor?
Yes.
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 And yes. I would ask Nicole if you are prepared, if we could take out of order your task force update.
Sure.
Since I think it will be relevant to the audience.
Sure. I do not have enough handouts for everybody, but I do have some. Kathy, do you mind to serve Paul? So I just want to say that one of the things that I do for a living is I'm an analyst. And I don't have any more. Sorry. So last year, when a survey was commissioned of Mashpee families, I had a lot of problems with the way it was conducted, just from a statistical perspective. So I put Patty through some paces this year to really do a more thorough survey of Mashpee families. So, and this was one of the reasons I ran for school committee, was because I wanted to really get in the habit of collecting periodic data to support the work that's done at this table, to identify new programming opportunities, to understand. It's really disconcerting that everyone's reading the things now. I should have said this first. I'm just looking at the top of everyone's heads.
You weren't on papers ahead.
I wasn't a teacher. I don't know that rule. But see, I work for the government, so this is what we do. Anyway, one of the things I was really excited about is we came up with strategic priorities this year to enhance community engagement and outreach, to offer financial outlooks, to plan our budgets a little bit more comprehensively. And as we talked about those goals, I said, well, how do we know whether we're doing them? And so we came up with the idea of doing an annual family opinion survey that I hope people realize as the years continue and expect this survey that they'll see this as an opportunity to provide direct input to the school committee and administration on things that are important to you, like school safety, like curriculum, like evaluation, your report cards, how success of your kids is communicated, how accessible the administration is to your needs. Do you know who to go to? Those kinds of things. So those are, if you're familiar, I see some head nods, so you must have seen some of this in the survey. And, sorry, I'm getting a little feedback. Sit back a little bit. The survey was basically designed to provide those metrics, baseline metrics, for all 3 schools. And so the first thing we did, I want to acknowledge the superintendent and her staff, and particularly Gail Hannon and Christine Connolly, who helped assemble sort of all the relevant information, and I kind of put them through the paces about all the things that we needed to do. Even Kathy was stuffing envelopes and helping input surveys. Also, I tapped our valedictorian on Easter weekend to help me recode a bunch of data because it wasn't really easy to look at in the way we had designed the survey. So Celia Wills helped me with data processing up until really Monday morning. And then be careful when you're talking to parents at those sporting events and they find out what you do for a living, because I was struggling with how to present this information in a really good way. And my husband said, oh, I know somebody who's an expert using that tool. And Chris Atterbury was just invaluable to me these last 24 hours in helping me present some of this stuff. So I welcome suggestions about other ways to present this. I focus specifically on the special questions, which So we did household questions for all 3 schools, and then at the end, the idea is to make those questions flexible and vary from year to year depending on what the hot topic is. We could figure out what the hot topic was this year, and we also wanted a few district-wide measures about our whether we have a positive public image from the perspective of families, and also whether you know what we are all here to do, we the school committee. So this is just the initial look at the special section of that questionnaire that dealt with those district-wide measures, and in particular the impact of changing school start times, which I think it was Samantha who mentioned that. We did say that we wanted to look at. I emphasized that as a parent, and that was something that the school committee felt was important when we went out to parents to ask about this. So the rest of the survey results I'm hoping to have on our first May meeting, May 2nd, if you're interested in those. So bear with me for a second. We have almost, what's the total number of students we have right now? It's usually in our packet. We have 1,655 students in this district. We have just over 1,033 households. Okay, so that's how we conducted the survey, was by household, not by kid. We had emails for 1,001 of those households. We're supposed to have emails for everybody, but we don't. Patty sent out an email on the 23rd notifying families that they were going to be getting this important survey and encouraging everybody to participate. The survey notification went out to those 1,001 households on February 26th. 17 surveys were mailed to households we did not have emails for that we got bounce backs from immediately. So we allowed that survey to be open for a month. We got 371 completed electronic surveys. I was not happy with that. And one of the things I had wanted to do, standard survey protocol is to actually follow one method with another method in quick succession, maybe 10 to 12 days after you sent the first one. But we were trying to make sure that we kept costs down. At this point, we hadn't spent anything except all the money and staff time and essentially volunteer time. So there were another 140 surveys that people started and never finished. And we cannot use those data. So that was gone. But we took everybody else, 517 people who had not either completed a survey or started that electronic survey, and we stuffed 500, I shouldn't say we, they stuffed 517 envelopes with postmark return envelopes so that you could just fill it out and send it back, free postage. We got 79 back, 15%, which is actually pretty good for a mail survey, but we got another 79 households. So in total, we have 450 completed surveys, or roughly about 44% of the district that's represented in these data. Now, the good news is that we got a fairly good distribution across the 3 schools, kind of just by luck, and that's what's nice about a survey like this, is so we got 40% of the households in the Mashpee Middle High School. We did not separate out the middle from the high school. That might be something that we want to think about changing next year. I had a few people ask me about that, but we treated them as a unit, so I just want you to know that. Quashnet, we got 41%, and Coombs, we got 43%. So right now, it looks pretty good, but we're still, I want to reserve the right to, we still want to look at how that breaks down compared to our district numbers to make sure that we got good overall representation. So some of what you're looking at on the sheets, now I'm going to turn to you guys, just so, because I haven't been talking to you. So let me explain some of this, and this is the thing that Chris and I worked on together, so I'm really grateful to him, and I think I owe him some shipyard. So what we have is, you can see the breakdown there of survey participants. There were 450 total. In most cases, these numbers should all total. I'm not exactly sure why the distribution across the schools doesn't also equal 450, so I have to
do a little work to make sure that there aren't any errors in there. But that generally shows you, we didn't want to assign a household to a school. I mean, in some cases, it's straightforward if you only have one kid. And I think there's about 500 or 600 households in the district that only have a kid in one school. But everyone else has kids in multiple schools. So that's what these numbers are that you're looking at, responses for each school. So we had 149 that just are for the high school, 23 that had the high school and a Coombs kid, 59 that had, so you can, I don't need to read all those, you can get that. The next one down, I asked Patty, I had a lot of people tell me that they had a handful of people tell me they didn't get the email survey. And so I was convinced that we might have a problem with some of the email addresses, or that should not be, a reliable tool for us. So that bottom box there, mail respondents asked whether they received the e-survey. So these were people who got the mail survey, and we asked them whether they had gotten the email invitation. And 20% of them said they didn't. So that's kind of a data point for us, more than. The next questions are the district-wide measures, which are whether, we have a strong, 75% thought we had a strong positive public image, so I was really happy to see that. And we also, roughly almost 2/3 know what we do, so that's, yeah. Although a big percentage were neutral, so that suggests they really didn't want to admit that they didn't know what we did. So anyway, these are just questions that will be interesting to see how they move, as we do this annually. So the next one is follows the rule of as soon as you print something out and hand it out to everybody, you find a mistake. And so that's why you have my handwritten notes if you're looking at a page there. But these are the results of the survey for those who answered regarding the impact of the start time for the Mashpee Middle High School. They say 280 because these are only the people who had indicated that they had a high school student. So you can see there that the vast majority thought that the impact of an 8:30 start time would have little or no, so it would either be no impact or slightly more challenging. That's what those two answers represent. And in the case of the 3:30 end time, that number's a little bit higher. It's almost 70% of the families surveyed said that there would be little to no impact of a later end time for the Mashpee Middle High School.
And I think that should be 3 o'clock. That's what the end time is.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Just
Sorry. There were a lot of.
The question said 3 p.m.
Yeah, apologies. So everybody note that on your copy. If that shows up in the Mashpee Enterprise, I'm going to be mad. Got it. Okay. So then the last sheet is the elementary school. And so what we did was we put the start times on the top row and the end times on the bottom so that you could compare start times to start times and end times to end times. Not surprisingly, the impact of a later end time was, was the most negligible, I guess, with 75% of respondents saying that a 3:35 end time for the school, the Coombs and Quashnet, had little or no impact on them. And so that is, and then you can note the start times. So 49%, I forgot that we're on TV, so I should read this for the benefit of people who are watching. So the 7:30 a.m. Start time, 49% said little or no impact, but almost an equal percentage said that it would be more challenging. And then for the 9:05 start time for the elementary schools, almost 60%, 57 or 58% said little or no impact of that change, and 38% said it would be more challenging, with almost equal 4% saying they were unsure of what the impact might be on them. So do you guys have any questions about all of that?
Well done.
Thanks.
Yeah, thank you for pulling this together so quickly.
So I guess I'll have to do a report with tables like this for all of these data, but what I was envisioning was, and we can have a little discussion about it, is whether we want to see information by school or by topic. You know, like, do we want to talk about bus safety across the district, or do we want to talk about, you know, all the I'm sure Mark wants to see all his measures, and Mary Kate wants to see hers. You know, so we'll have to think about different ways, and we can maybe slice it a couple of different ways.
I think for problem solving that we may want to look at a school level and then look for trends that are shared so that we can really dive down in, I think.
Okay. So school level would be your preference?
Yeah, I think so.
I think so too.
So, Nicole, I guess one of the questions then is when you anticipate being able to bring back additional data?
Well, I mean, if we'd like, so I think the next piece for this that it was important to me, and I don't want to bore you guys, but this, I think what I struggled with a voluntary survey last year was that we didn't know anything about the people who didn't respond. So the nice thing about doing the survey this way, opening up to the whole district and actually assigning IDs to households, you know, not identifiers that allow us to know whether the group that didn't respond is alike or unlike the group that did. So for example, if we know that we have 50 families in the district who have kids in each school, and only 5 of them responded, then that would be important to know, because we might be underestimating the impact on a big segment of our district, or the reverse could be true. So that's sort of the next piece for me, is to understand the whether there's any non-response bias. And then once I think we're convinced that we're okay, because if we did have a bias like that, you might weight some of these responses. So you might take a particular family type or household type and give that those answers a little more amplification in the results. Right now, it's one house, one vote, basically. So that's the other thing. And then the last piece is just doing this for the rest of the data, which isn't all that, it's time consuming, but I had hoped that maybe you would wait until May, because I still have a semester to get through, and so I would like to maybe push the rest of the data until then, unless there's some pressing need to have it before then.
I don't think so. Okay.
Yeah. But I mean, I'm totally open to suggestions from, you know, the public and from other people in the district who have things that they would like to see, or things I may not have considered. So use aforementioned email address.
Yeah. So I know we've been discussing the school start times for, seems like forever here at this committee. I know that we still have a website out there, or a link to information that the school start time committee had prepared and gathered now over a year ago regarding that. So I think we need to make sure that people are aware of what is going on. It sounds like it was really the superintendent's email blast that got people's attention here at the 11th hour. That's clearly not this committee's intention. We've been talking about this for a long time, and you know, we're trying to bring this to some point where we can bring closure one way or the other regarding it. And having this public hearing was another part of being able to gather information from the public so that, you know, we can have the best feedback possible to be able to make an informed decision here as a committee. So I would ask the superintendent if you can take that same email blast and blast out the link to all of the information, also to the tentative schedule that we've got for the school committee, which outlines how we've kind of progressed on this topic and what our intentions are to try to bring this to some sort of resolution.
Right, and I definitely acknowledge I could do a better job communicating. Yesterday's blast was not, I did include it in Friday's email, my weekly email. Not that that's something I could have made it, bolder, but we'll do a better job of making sure everyone knows what's going on. But it was not just announced last night. There was a little advance on Friday. But I appreciate that, and we'll work to make it better.
I would also ask, there were several questions that came up that I think you have the information to be able to respond to. If you can respond to everyone and also the committee with those responses to those questions so that everyone is informed about that.
Thank you.
Nicole?
One more thing. I also just want to thank those 450 families and parents who sat down with their kids and completed the survey. And I think that people get inundated with requests for information, and I think they are cynical about how that information is used. Either it's going to be used against them or it won't be used at all. But I was really impressed with the responses that parents gave us in terms of suggestions for programming, things like language offerings and drama clubs and, different, just all kinds of cool ideas. And I feel like there's a lot for us to sink our teeth into in terms of feedback from families. And I hope and encourage people that we do our jobs and apply that feedback and use that information. And then next year when we go back to families and ask them to submit again, we'll get an even better response. But so I just want to thank everybody, and especially I also want to thank the administration for devoting so much time to implementing it. So now we just have to get the information out. And I'm sorry, I don't want anybody to think that we're being secretive. Working in the government, I sometimes understand just it looks bad, but it just really takes that long sometimes. And I don't think we're back here. We're not back here twirling our mustaches trying to figure out, how to get away with stuff. It's all the folks that are working on the survey results are volunteers and all have jobs. So we're trying to do this on top of everything else. And maybe that's not a good idea. Maybe we should have some way to do it that allocates a bit of resources every year or every other year to implement. So that's something we can talk about as well.
Definitely. But thank you for putting this together. This is,
It's what I came here to do, John. I tell you.
Yeah, I would just like to acknowledge Nicole Bartlett and all of the work she's put into this. It is a very worthwhile endeavor that I hope we'll be able to do annually, but she's truly valuable with her skill set and her persistence.
Very good.
And the only other piece I'd like to add as people in the community, I hope that people can presume positive intent because we are trying to do the best thing and we're not trying to manipulate, we're not trying to be secretive. And sometimes, I try to avoid reading things in certain locations online, but I don't necessarily see that we're presuming positive intent.
Chris, you had a comment?
That's a great segue for what I wanted to say.
Okay.
But anyway, first I want to thank everybody for showing up. It's good to see, people here and take interest.
Normally
It really
there's
is.
no one.
Normally it's empty.
Yeah.
We have our faithful reporter and our other administrators here. But no, it's great, and I hope that at least you had this opportunity, and those of you watching on TV as well, had the opportunity to see that we are trying to do more than just look at one data point. The creation of the survey was great. I was, being a parent that's going to be impacted by this as well, but also having been on this side of the table the entire discussion, having Nicole come on as somebody that was on that side and now on this side, She brings another perspective too, where, you know, we heard a lot last year that everybody always thought it was a done deal. Everything, that you guys already made up your mind, why even bother? Nothing's a done deal until it's voted on and you know, your kids start coming to school at one time or another. That's the only time it's a done deal. We do look at everything. We want to hear from everybody. We look at the survey data. We look at the medical data of, you know, what impacts there are to, you know, students in the high school versus whatever. We look at the budget, how that's going to impact it. Everything's being looked at. At the end of the day, as I'm sure you understand, and I hope you understand, people are not going to be happy. This is the burden that we decided to take on when we decided to run for these seats. It's something that I welcome, and unfortunately, at the end of the day, that's just how it's going to be. There are going to be a group of people that are not going to be happy, and a group of people that are going to be happy, no matter what the decision is. And I hope I can speak for everybody at this table. The decision we make is going to be in the best interest of the kids, the families, the best way we can see it, not for us. You know, we have nothing to gain from this. So I just hope that's understood, and hopefully you got a little bit of that today, and maybe you can take that with you and, you know, let anybody else that you know, when you go back and talk about what happened at the meeting. So I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
All right.
Is Sharon?
Sharon,
Just a quick
come,
housekeeping question, if you would.
just come to the microphone so they pick you up.
Just if there still is a start time committee and how, and if they're in the picture here somehow, I just want a bigger picture of how we're approaching this.
So the school start time committee that worked for roughly 16 months basically was disbanded because their job was to do all of the research and come up with some options. So at this point, it's considering, you know, several options is where we're at.
Should we consider Nicole heading up the? I know. I mean,
New job for you.
and I, you know, not trying to diss the survey, but who should we go to? Who should we approach? Should we email the school committee? Should we email a particular person? If we have maybe a stray question.
So you should reach out to the superintendent.
Okay.
That would be your best contact. You can also reach out to the committee members, but definitely you should reach out to the superintendent.
Thank you.
Okay?
Every time I get a question from a parent, I respond, and then I go to Patty and say, hey, I got this question from a parent. And she goes, well, you know, they can reach out directly to me. And I say, I know, but for whatever reason, some people don't, you know, they don't want to contact the superintendent for whatever reason. So, yeah, I mean, she's at her desk every day doing school stuff.
Okay.
Okay. But don't feel like you can't reach out. I think I've responded to everybody who's asked me a question. I'm perfectly, if you have any questions about the survey or suggestions, you know, just if you want to reach out to me, that's great. But CC Patty so that it just helps me not have to.
All right.
Carry the water
Fair
back
enough.
to her.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Right. Because when we respond to you, we're copying the superintendent anyway.
Yeah.
Great.
Okay?
Thank you.
Thanks, sure. Was that your way of telling me to CC Patty?
If you're not, you're supposed to.
Always trying to teach the new kids something.
No,
I'm just kidding.
I love this. All right. So this discussion in regard to school start time is not over. It will continue. But it is over for tonight. So you can stay for the rest of the meeting, or you may leave. You're not going to hurt our feelings. I'll give you a minute because I know it's going to be disruptive. So if you want to leave now, go ahead.
No, but it's really fun. You should stay.
It is.
It's like super fun.
I know,
You see, like dance and there's like all sorts of things.
We're
I
gonna
feel like
talk-
I'm in Greenwich, Rhode Island or something.
We're going to talk about protocols.
It's Greenwich. Thanks, Sharon.
Vote you off the rock.
One thing.
Yeah, go.
I found rather quickly, but
Thank
it
you.
was a nice summation. of,
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank
where
you.
a lot of us stand.
All right.
I don't know if you want yet more paper.
I love your papers.
Thank you.
Are you not going to show all the empty seats now? That's sad.
Steve's holding down the fort down there.
We appreciate you, Steve.
All right.
Let's reassess.
What's next?
All right, so let's, let us.
You still here, Paul?
Yep, I'm here. I'm here. I know it's not my night, but I'm here.
It's just tea.
Yeah.
It's red tea. It looks like mulled wine, but it's not.
All right, let's
Thought I should have something that I really
move forward
loved
here if we
tonight.
can, please, with the report of the superintendent. Item 10.1.
Okay.
Okay. I'll be brief.
Please.
One of the things I wanted to highlight before I look at that principal's reports is, and you have in front of you, the We Are Mashpee site at Mashpee Commons. And I just want to get out there to the general public that we have a soft opening of our hashtag We Are Mashpee, which is an outreach site in the Mashpee Commons, and we're very grateful to Mashpee Commons for providing this site, which Frederick did a very good job of telling the location of it. But I wanted to make sure that on Saturday, anyone who can stop by, we'd love to have you. From 10 to 11 at the site is Celia Krefter presenting a Mashpee Humanitarian Mapathon, which is her senior project, and it's tied into the actual event on April 10th. 11 to 12, we have the high school jazz band performing. 11 to 1, we have integrating 3D printing with augmented and virtual reality. 3 students are presenting that. 12 to 1:30, we have Techsperts helping the Mashpee community, which is Olin Jacobson and Jonah Erdman. So if you have a question, stop in. They can probably help you. 1 to 3, we have some of the members of the Blue Falcon Theater Company who were in The Little Mermaid. They're going to be performing. Ariel and Sebastian will be there. And then 3:30 to 5, as Frederick cited, is the AP Studio Art Showcase, which is Regine McFarland's senior project. And I believe on another chart I had, there was also the Vex Gods. I'm not sure if they're still going, are they? The robotics? Anyway, it will be a hopping place to be, and everyone should be there on Saturday. So I highly recommend it. All right. Now. So we have the report from Principal LaBelle, who he apologizes he's out sick, but we have Scott Shepard, assistant principal here. 430 students at the Coombs School.
I can't imagine Paul LaBelle sick. I mean, what does that look like?
Sometimes people
He
go
just
down.
must be like a dish rag. I'm like trying to picture that.
We'll share that with
He's
him.
got so much
Let's
energy.
Get a little emoji with a dish rag. Anyway.
Thank him for not coming. So we were spared the image.
430 students. Thank you to Kim Palmer for the visiting artists. And we have Jackie Delfonso, Jeremy Steele, Michelle Law, Betsy Payne Cook, Kathy Timmons, and Jesse Nickerson, who are working with each second grade class on the mural that's tied to a selected children's book, and the unveiling is April 13th at 2:15. And then next week on April 12th, it is an invitation to our mature residents of Mashpee to come at 9 o'clock for a little gathering and to see the school. So it's senior citizens don't really like to be called senior citizens, so we're shifting that to
Oh,
mature.
I was wondering what
Super
that
mature.
meant.
All right, we have the report from Principal O'Brien for the Quashnet School, 486 students. Upcoming events, the PTO movie night on the 6th, the staff versus grade 6 floor hockey game, which is on the 13th at 1:15. That is always a very heated event, and somehow at that event, teachers forget they're playing against students. It's very,
Wait, what day is this?
that is on the Friday before vacation,
Oh, okay.
1:15. And then after vacation is the annual spelling bee at 5:30. The preliminary rounds are at 5:30, but that's really a fascinating event to be part of and to watch. Some of her gratitudes that she has on this sheet are also included, just to point out that this Friday is the Enterprise article that I do monthly, so I've tried to hit some of those highlights within that article. We have the report of Principal Balistracci, 742 students currently at Mashpee Middle High School. Again, senior exhibition night was outstanding. This Saturday, we have some students competing at the South Coast Sea Perch Derby, which is an underwater robotics event. And thank you to Southport, because our Southport Falcons arranged for their pool to be used as a practice spot for our students, so they are better prepared for the actual event. I think Frederick talked about the talent show. On April 28th, the Cape Cod Mini Maker Fair, which is a fabulous event to go to, and if you make anything and you'd like to participate as a maker, you're welcome to do that. And April 29th is the Class of 2019 Golf Tournament at Willow Bend. And also the Super Bowl ring ceremony for the football players.
So is that golf tournament happening? I thought I saw something that it was canceled. Where's Mark?
I had to
Oh.
call him out.
Oh.
So we'll
Oh,
find out.
Okay.
We'll find out. I did not hear that.
It was in that email that I got. I started getting those emails from the high school. I thought I saw one that said it was canceled.
Wait, I get all of those.
We have
I
fixed
did
the
not.
gremlins in that department. There were some gremlins.
It's like in a newsletter or something.
And we have the report of Dr. Curley, and there's a good explanation of circuit breaker you could read on your own if you want to bone up on that.
Oh.
And very well written. The report of AD Director Matt Treveri, I just want to point out that the boys basketball team were the Division IV South champions, and although they lost the semifinal game at TD Boston, it was quite an experience for them to play on the same parquet as the Celtics. They finished ranked second in Division IV in the state. Shout out to Ashley Kelleher, who is a sophomore. Devon Ford, Michael Frazier, Michael Barrows, and Anthony Gonzalez were all part of the Cape and Islands All-Star basketball game. Kudos to Devon Ford as a junior. He became the second player in Mashpee history to score 1,000 points. He scored it in one of the tournament games, I think in Taunton. And the previous, or the other person who scored over 1,000 points, Joey Lopes, in 2008. Congratulations to South Shore League Winter Cheerleading All-Stars, Lizzie Kidwell, Megan Bennett, and Dana Richmond. And that's it. And then you have enrollments, which we already talked about. So the total is 1,658 students in Mashpee. And I think that's it.
Okay, any questions?
Steve, you don't get a packet, you don't get the packet, do you? It's online. This circuit breaker narrative that Jamie put together is pretty good. Be useful to anyone writing a story about school budgets.
So, I just had
My husband will
one
tell you I'm
quick
not
question
subtle. Sure.
for Jamie. Out of district, was that a new student coming in or an existing student? The increase?
It was a student who's living in another place, but the parents reside in our.
Okay, all right, thank you.
I didn't catch that.
It was, parents reside in our district, so the child lives in another part of the state, but the parents reside.
Oh.
Okay,
So now we're covering that cost?
yeah.
Can I just, it might be helpful at some point for Dr. Curley to talk about the different ways we could be responsible fiscally for students from a special ed perspective, because there are so many that I don't think everyone knows about, and that can really affect the budget in a very unforeseen and very significant way. So sorry, Dr. Curley, to throw that on you, but I do think it would be valuable not only for the committee to hear, but for the public, because our vast dance party public who left. But I think anyone watching on TV, it's very important information that really affects all of us. So.
How about 8:30?
No. Yeah, I think.
Maybe she could summarize it in her
Yeah,
next
just like
report.
that chart.
Yeah.
It's like all the different ways that we could be fiscally responsible.
That
So
would be
can-
excellent.
Can we make sure we capture that in the minutes so that we get that on a future agenda?
Well,
could
it could be a handout that she could
Yeah, she can
provide
do
to
it
us.
in her-
Could she use it in
Oh.
her next
In her
report?
next-
Gotcha.
Instead of focusing
Okay.
on circuit breaker, she'll do fiscal responsibility.
Okay.
Certainly can answer any questions.
Great.
Okay.
She's gonna film it.
Well, it's hard, unless we have a discussion, I mean, the handouts are great, but unless we have it on the agenda, I don't really know what questions to ask from looking at I just feel like sometimes when you're talking about it, you kind of
Maybe
question.
what I could do is do a handout and just go through it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we'll add you to a May agenda, okay? Give you time to prepare right after
Yeah.
Nicole gets her surveys
We'll
updated.
prep together, Jamie.
And superintendent has
So
one other
thing
item.
before I give up my time is, this was the Classroom Times that came out on Tuesday, and just to acknowledge the students from Mashpee who have achieved a recognition. So Katrina Mahan, she got second place, and she is a 7th grader at the middle high school. And then we had 3rd place to Casey Betcher, who's also a 7th grader. Hers was under the opinion category. 3rd place for why you should adopt animals from an animal shelter. Just to read what Katrina's was, is Michaela Schifrin, On Top of the Mountain. And then we have, I think, Robert O'Neill. Robert O'Neill is a 7th grader at Mashpee Middle High School, and he received 3rd place. Civil Air Patrol Cadets Do It All, which was a news feature. And then the last one, which was 1st place, is Bouncing Back from Gymnastics Slip-Up. It was a 1st place for a 4th grader, Hayden Shavansky from the Quashnet School. So kudos to them, and they represent Mashpee very well.
Excellent. All right. Moving forward, Paul's still awake over there?
Yep, I'm all set.
All right, so.
Let's rock and roll.
Report of
Any
the-
questions?
I asked for that, didn't I? So
Well,
11.1, the Quashnet Library.
We've been talking for some time about upgrading this library. The furniture in this library is over 40 years old. When people sit in these chairs, sometimes you hear them squeak, and I'm hoping that they just hold up. What you have before you is a schematic plan for a new library. And with the funds that we have this year, some surplus funds, we'll be able to complete this library. I'll just quickly go over it. If you look at the top, and I'll call the top the part that does not say Library Quashnet Elementary School, that's this wall over here. The top up the top is the one door. You'll see those are high top tables to the left. To the right there, you'll notice it's just an empty space. I'll get to that in a minute. There's a couple of high top tables. The stuff that you see down in this area is kind of like living room furniture, where it's soft furniture, kind of coffee table where the kids can go and read. And that open space up on the right-hand side, if you flip to the next page, this was an idea of the superintendent's, is to put bicycles there. Stationary bicycles that the kids could eat and read and pedal at the same time. It's being used in other school districts, and it's very successful. So, it's for some of the kids get a little fidgety. This will keep them kind of busy and still keep them in the library, so.
How many are you suggesting?
Probably 3. We'll see how that starts, and then.
I don't think that's enough for the school committee to be able to
No.
all be on at the same time.
That's all right, I'll stay off. It's all yours.
During meetings.
So, just getting back to this, we have had multiple designs over the past months. I kind of left it up to the principal of the school to kind of work with the architect in
It's right up your
designing
alley
this.
these days. You
Yeah.
just- Yeah.
Yep. As you see, we did have the library painted in anticipation that we will move forward with this library. To make it all work, I'm going to move forward tomorrow with the purchase order. So tonight, I'll entertain any questions. This is a state bid, so we don't have to go out to bid. The state has already bid this vendor. So, I know it's kind of, the bookcases along the wall are kind of hard to read, what size they are. So I'll just kind of give you, some of them are 61 inches and some of them are 44 inches. So what we're going to do, we talked about this, if we had a couple of 61s and then drop down to the 41, that the students would be able to display some of their artwork and some of their ceramics. I know they do ceramics here, so I know it's hard to read, but we do have enough bookcases for quite a number of volumes. I don't know if I have that.
So will there have to be electrical run and different things through the floor? Or like these workstations in the middle of the library, are they going to be powered or are they just tables?
They're just tables.
Okay.
The only place that we would have to have power is for the librarian's desk, which is when you
middle,
come in
yeah.
the middle there, and we've kind of worked that. And it's kind of, rather than have it where it is now, we're going to have it almost like greeting the students as they come into the library.
So what does this do as far as the school committee being able to meet in this space?
In the what?
Where does the school committee meet? Where's
It
our
would be-
table?
Oh.
Living room front.
On the-
Oh, you know, I wasn't really,
on the bikes.
I only come once a month, so I really wasn't thinking about you people. And I apologize. I was thinking of the students. So when
I guess
Mary
we've
Kate and
been
I worked on.
evicted and need a new
But
space.
Is the
These-
furniture on wheels, Mr. Funk?
These are all casted, yeah.
Casted.
So you see where where all the chairs and the table are in the middle, that can be reconfigured.
Speaking of the chairs,
Yep.
how are they? I mean, these are rough. Sitting in this thing for 2 hours, 3 hours.
Right.
Is awful.
These are, I'm trying to get the term that they are.
Added.
Ergonomic?
Ergonomic,
Yeah.
thank you, ergonomic. And we are going to go see a library that, tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock, that has these. So if you'd like to join us,
Where is it?
Monomoy, the brand-new high school.
Oh.
So all this stuff is on.
And then after we meet with, after we go and look at the setup there, we have the salespeople from the company coming to meet with
Towards that corner.
Mary Kate O'Brien, and what she is going to do is pick out the colors and so forth.
She's so good at that.
Another color. I'm not good at
Year
colors.
of Mary Kate.
In my past life, I built a number of elementary schools, and when the superintendent would ask me to go in and pick out the color schemes, I would pick it out, and they would go with the opposite. So I've had that issue, so. So we're ready to go. And, you know, this is a 12-week out, so we got the windows coming in, we got, so it's a tight schedule.
So is this a fixed cost bid?
I'm sorry?
Is this a fixed cost bid?
What do you mean by fixed cost? Could you? if it's-
So I'm
Abso- I'll take that.
looking at the invoice or the quote here on the last page.
That is correct.
So it will not exceed that number?
It will not exceed that number, and it's right there on the last page. You'll see that it, MHEC, that's Massachusetts Higher Education Consortium, and that's the contract, their contract number. So they can go to any school district, any college in Massachusetts, state college, and they can use that contract. It's delivered and installed, and the prices will hold to 2018. So that price will hold.
So all this would come in after, sorry, is it okay if I? ask
No,
one?
go ahead.
So all this would come in after school's out, or will this be happening while school is in session?
Well, it'll probably be after school's out, to be honest with you. I don't
Okay.
think we're going to get it.
So we don't have any impacts to the school year that's,
No, and it may come in, and it may be a situation where we have to just store it here until the fall, and then have them assembled, and that's
good. That's fine.
been explained to the contractor. So we've gone over all of that.
yeah, unfortunately, we're not planning on using the school for anything this summer, so, right?
We do have to work with the contractor though to get access into the school because depending on when it comes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We have time to, and how we can do that without a problem.
So I guess my question is, where's the money coming from?
I'm assuming.
Well, the original contract, the funds are coming from savings on the salary side and hiring people, salary side of the budget, and if needed, possibly some choice funds, but it doesn't look like I'm going to need the choice funds. I've already sat down and gone through, as you know, as we get through this time of the year, we start looking at funds, some funds that were saved by moving people into grants. There are funds that we had projected that people were going to retire, and there were funds that we were going to use for that, for their buybacks, because as you know, their buybacks can be as high as $30,000. So there were a couple that we thought were going to retire and have pulled their retirement. So that's where the majority comes from.
So this
Or all
will
of
be
it
paid
comes
for
from-
out of this year's budget?
That is
not out of
correct.
next
That was the
year.
whole thing in getting
Okay.
this,
Getting it in now.
getting this off the table tomorrow
I like that.
and moving forward.
Me too, because
Yeah.
otherwise this money goes back to the town.
That is correct. We would have to turn this back to the town. And I had got my instructions from the school committee.
We don't want to do that
spend it
anymore.
down.
It's needed.
Yeah.
And it's needed, it's
Yeah.
not something.
I mean, I know, believe me, the chairs will be a lot better than what we're sitting on here, because I do sit on them, because I was on the building committee for the Monomoy High School.
Wow.
So that's we hold our
I
meetings.
do like the bikes. I like that idea too, because I've done, and there's a ton of research out there too on the benefit to this. I remember having a conversation, I don't remember if it was you a while back too, about the pedal desks. I know they're very expensive, so that's something that, if we ever did get that be worked in, it's not easy to do.
What was it?
They're desks that
Pedal
have
desks.
pedals on it. There's a lot of research that shows that.
Okay, well, we can look at
whether-
those too, and.
Whether it's a child that fidgets or not,
Experimental ones.
anybody.
Well, I don't like using that term, but sometimes, students need that.
No, I know what you mean, but I'm just making sure that, we understand the data's out there that for anybody, an adult, a child, anybody that's looking to, increase their ability to, take in information and focus, doing it on a stationary bike the data's incredible.
Yeah, I think the flexible seating options are really what the research shows, that
Yeah.
everyone should be able to pick what works for them.
Yeah.
And that's, the choice is really represented in what's going to be in here.
Mhm.
And certainly, as we move forward with any kind of furniture purchases, we should always be considering choice.
Yeah.
Because you think about us as adults, if I had to sit in a chair that I would lose my mind.
Yeah.
All day. So
Yep.
the choice is really where the research kind of.
And the purchase of the bikes is not in this particular proposal tonight. I just have to get this off the ground so we can get this within this fiscal year.
And we'd want to make sure the bikes were sized appropriately for the
Yeah,
population that's
there's
in
a lot
here.
of things that have to
And-
go.
And I don't know whether you already said that, but the finance working group, we did discuss this
Right,
project
we
with
did-
them.
We did discuss
So-
it.
They're making that, they're my
Chris,
size. yeah.
so I hate to disappoint you, but according to this, the chairs have plywood seats. So if you're looking for something soft.
There was one other thing, going back to the seats. I don't remember exactly how many extra seats we ordered, because we're expecting bigger crowds here when I play this room. How many?
I believe a dozen.
A dozen. So we'll have a dozen seats that are not shown on this. We ordered a dozen extra. This project started out at 111,000, just to let you know. Came in a lot less. A lot of work went into it. Any other questions before I move on to the next thing?
Thank you, Paul. It's
Thanks,
awesome.
Paul.
All right.
Thank you, Mary Kate. Very exciting.
It's very exciting, I hope we can do that. We'll have windows we'll be able to see out of, so we want to have nice seating to
It's-
look into the courtyards.
Yeah.
And didn't we talk, the library will be much more comfortable, as I believe a member was describing it as not super comfortable.
Right, and we have those little spots with the soft chairs, almost like living room chairs. Yeah, you can, if you like.
You could with your
So-
Chromebook.
So
All
do
right.
you, we need to vote or anything, or are you good?
No.
Okay. All right, awesome.
No, we'll be voting when we have to do the budget transfers.
Yep, that
Oh,
would be the
okay.
only thing.
All right.
All right, and then I thought it was doing very well, and the superintendent, we have a Mashpee Public Schools Community Message Board sign. And the superintendent has got all the project notes on this, got it approved through the town. And it's just finding, we're in the design stage here. We're still, or is this pretty much it?
We've pretty much finalized the design, and the company is getting back to us with a quote.
Right,
that's. I was just gonna say, the original design, you have a picture of it in your pile of handouts.
Yep.
The very top is lit. It will be lit all the time. Then you have the message board. It happens to be shown here in black, but it can be white as a background, and obviously whatever the message is will be lit. At night it dims, and then the bottom panel with the white and the M is not lit. That's just whatever material it is there. And any thoughts on that?
Have you taken a look at the Dennis Yarmouth sign?
Personally, I have not.
I thought I could pull it up on my phone, but the internet in here is ridiculous. No.
They shut it off at 8:30.
No, but I pulled it up today because I saw some comments online that nothing like this exists on Cape Cod, and we're going to have a movie screen on 151 and all this nonsense. But there actually is one on Cape Cod. It's at the Dennis Yarmouth High School. And it's by the same company.
Yes.
And I put in a request to Philip Morris, who's the school committee member that I sit on with the collaborative from DY, just to ask him about some of the things about that sign. And so I'm a little worried about it being lit all the time. And when I saw the image of the DY sign, it reminds me a little bit of the fairgrounds in that there's this top part, but that it's like a scrolling, the red letters and all that stuff. So I just would like us to just do our due diligence. And I personally, if I could have driven by it at night before coming to this meeting, I would have done so. But I intend to, just to have a look at it and see what sort of, what it looks like at night. And that I do not want to, I think, I was telling somebody today, I feel like we have an opportunity to demonstrate to this town how this can be done well and tastefully. And I also believe that the one thing that says Mashpee Public Schools in this town should reflect the amazing and vibrant and exciting and just high-performing district that we are. So I really think it's a great idea, and I'd like to see us do it. But I want to be, as somebody I have a 6-acre property in Mashpee that has been, the town has let all kinds of commercial entities build around us. And I'm very sensitive to this issue of light pollution and in residential areas. And there is bridges across the way, which wasn't there when, not that many years ago. And I feel like we need to be respectful of the values of our mature population, as well as the people who have families and kids in our school district. So I just like to see us balance that, and I want to just make sure we don't rush into something that's very, and not that we're rushing, or anything, but I just, I don't think it's going to be a concern if we do it well. And I know that you're trying to do it well too. And so I just thought it would be interesting to just drive out by the other one, that's not that far up the road. Oh, that's the DY one.
Yeah.
Trying
Yeah.
to find it online.
So Dawn has it. So I can't tell from that because it's daytime. I can't tell whether they light it at night. So I was trying to find out from Philip whether they do. But it's beautiful. I mean,
If you want to get a look, obviously it's not a school sign, but if you want to
Can you
get a
show
look
me?
at a lit sign at night, very local to us, if you go to, do you know where the Falmouth Gate is to the base?
yeah.
If you drive up that road, there's one before you get to the gate, so you don't have to go on base to see it. There's one right on the right-hand side.
By
where
your
it says
house?
the,
By my house?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
So if you take, yeah.
Didn't even know that.
Yep,
8
if
years
you,
later.
if you take that turn when you go up to if you're heading right to the gate of the base.
Yeah.
It's for the base, it's information for the base. It's right there on the right-hand side where the county, it's the coroner's office?
It is lit.
I'm gonna have to look.
It's right out front of that.
Whenever I get on my way
Yes.
home.
Did you see it?
There's
You know
one
what it
in-
looks like.
I know what it looks
Yeah.
No, no.
Apparently, it's not bright enough to.
Well,
So-
it's certainly not
Well,
disturbing my
it's on
household.
it's kind of a side road,
not high.
going up to the base.
Oh,
But I'm
yeah.
saying if you want to see,
Yeah.
it's a full color lit up sign. So if you kind of want to see what
get
it,
onto the base, but you don't actually.
you know,
get to
it's
the base.
it's
So
not
Mom
even
has
close
one
to that close to the
Alright.
gate. So you can go up there and look at it. Nobody's going to
I
hassle
will
you.
check
so.
it out.
Okay.
I just wanted to quickly add, when we went before the sign design review committee this week, we did acknowledge that while the bylaws don't apply to the schools, that we feel that we are one and the same with the town government, and we do not want to do anything to deface or devalue the town in any way. We have a goal of really making the town better and being able to highlight what's great about it. So one of the things was a concern to them was the cycling of messages, so we agreed that there would be 25-second intervals, which is, so you're really going to see one message as you drive by. They were concerned about the lumens, which is not something I'm an expert at, but we agreed with the bylaw, which was 1,000 lumens per square foot. 100 lumens per square foot. 100. But the company got back to Mr. Looney, and that we are at a 0.3 lumens per square foot, a 0.3.
Oh.
Where 100 is in the bylaw.
Ah.
They were concerned about the size because it was a slightly different version than they had originally seen, but it will not be any taller or wider than what they had seen. And then the last one was that the preference for earth tone colors. And I don't think they were totally fond of any kind of red lettering. But what we said was all of the tones can be adjusted, and maybe red lettering would be, set aside for strictly emergency messages from fire or police that would really, gain some attention. But based on, we are trying to create, like Nicole said, an end product that everyone would be proud of. We're not trying to do anything, negative to detract from what's great about the town.
Well, I think the other thing that I wanted to emphasize is that I think what we're trying to do is elevate, not just our engagement with the town, but the image of the schools in the town. And when you and I were running for these seats last year, I mean, I heard a lot, we were at Southport, and they said, what are you going to do to improve the reputation of Mashpee schools? We're proud of our schools. We want to see them in the paper more. We want to see them. And I feel like this is sort of, the library renovation, the We Are Mashpee store, the outreach that's going to happen there in association with something like this that helps us brand the schools in a beautiful, classy way. I think that's all part of a strategy that says we are a top-notch district and we are serving this community, and we want the attention of the community because we really have an opportunity to shine. So I think it's really a comprehensive strategy that I credit you with, honestly, because these ideas didn't come from this side of the table. But I really think it's all together. I think we're going to see a nice impact from all of it. Yeah.
One of the comments made at the design review committee from one of the gentlemen on the board was that, with today's technology, they're finding out everything, they need to, emails or whatever. But what I said, we're able to capture and communicate to our families. But the rest of the community that might like to attend things, there are people who don't read the Mashpee Enterprise. I've talked to them at Southport. So how are they going to know about things that are going on? And that's one additional way to try to tap into people who are not directly connected with the schools but live in this community and would really benefit from sharing in what's happening in the community. of the schools.
And never mind all the people that are coming here in the summer. I mean, I think the We Are Mashpee is gonna be so great to hit all those people that are driving through to Katuitt or Hyannis or, you know, and I feel like the sign's part of that too, you know, so. So anyway, thank you, and thank you, Paul.
So what's the current cost estimate
Oh.
on this?
The current cost estimate. Again, he's gonna come back with 40,000.
And how are we funding this?
I'm working on that.
It should come in lower than that because that was
Yeah.
with the bigger lit panel that we had in the first,
And then he has to meet with me.
yeah, and he hasn't, he has to meet, he hasn't gone through the barrier of Mr. Funk yet. So we would.
Don't let Patty oversell your talents.
He's come through every time.
Yeah.
So I don't know, it's his
I'll-
reputation he's got.
You know, we'll look at different, we'll look at different sources.
Okay.
And we did,
Yeah, that was an update, not a do.
yeah, that's not.
So,
Real do.
so we're looking at 90,000 for the library and
Rounding
another
up.
40,000, so a total of 130,000?
All right.
All right, so when will you be providing us then with the funding sources for this?
For the sign?
Yeah,
Yeah, probably next meeting.
next
Great.
meeting?
Yeah.
Okay.
We should have it by then.
Okay.
Oh, you want the funding? Yeah.
Funding sources.
It's late.
And the-
I'll have it at the next
And the
meeting.
actual.
And
And a quote.
that
In a
actually
lower quote.
match
In a lower
Yeah,
quote.
what you're going
Yeah, I
to
understand.
ask to pay
Yeah.
for.
Right,
A lower quote.
right, I
Right.
understand.
He
No, I
just changed the
understand.
design
I'll
to-
take care of it.
This
like
week.
this
Yeah.
week.
Yeah.
So that's why I was just saying to Mrs. DeBoer, this is just an update because we are not there.
Yeah.
where It's signed, sealed, delivered at all.
No, I know, but we're
So
trying,
No, I know, I understand.
we're trying to get there.
Yeah.
And it's.
It may be pieces from here and there and so
And I-
forth.
I'm-
I'll have it all broken down as soon as I get the concrete price.
The DY one was 50 grand, just FYI.
But-
But I think that was brickwork.
Yeah, they did have a
They
little
have-
Well,
stone.
yeah,
Right.
that base had to been
Yeah.
at least $10,000.
Bottom line is you're gonna see the same thing.
They have a lit sign?
Yeah. Huh. So it turns out there's multiple examples on Cape Cod.
I could have had it welcome.
Where is it?
Who was it? Who was it that thought that there were none? I'm not sure if I can.
Well,
Anyway.
Apparently they didn't drive by the.
Yeah.
By the fairgrounds either, so,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
'Cause that one's an active one. All right, any other questions on that report from the business administrator? Hearing none, let's move on then to item 12.1, discussion regarding moving the custodians under the school department.
So basically, we're just gonna discuss whether or not the language in the document is interpreted as we believe, and then decide if we're going to investigate further, correct?
That would be, I think, the thought process.
Fantastic.
So in your packet on page 11, you have a copy of section 5.8 from the charter. And in particular, it's the last paragraph on that page.
Have we got legal opinion?
We did have legal opinion, slightly going in a different direction, I felt.
Yeah, so when we asked Sarah about it, her initial concern was how this occurred and whether there was an actual vote by the school committee to transfer the functions to the town. That never happened. There was no formal vote by the school committee. This happened via the charter and basically a silent, I would take it, silent acquiescence by the school committee at that point to have the individuals in the budget for repairs, maintenance, and custodial functions transferred to the town or consolidated under the town.
But some of the minutes when we researched to find back when all of this happened, any reference that we did find in any school committee minutes only referenced maintenance. There was not any specific custodial.
Right. So we're kind of in that gray area. I think there's clearly some logistical challenges and budgetary challenges that will have to be addressed if this committee wants to move forward with having discussions with the town manager and the Board of Selectmen in regard to reclaiming those custodial functions under the school department in the future.
Which I believe is all we're really looking for tonight, is kind of getting unofficial, like not voting, just consensus on, do we feel like this is something we want to pursue further investigating? Or do we, obviously, I think that's probably the best route to go, but
Yeah, it's not going to be a quick process.
No.
At best, it would not happen for probably a year because the town budget is already set for this coming fiscal year. Now, could it be done quicker? Sure, if all parties agreed to make the change.
I understood that both sides were amenable. So I don't, maybe you're being cautiously optimistic, but Patty, you want to do this, right?
Well, we've had casual conversations with the town manager where he indicated at the time, oh, the custodian should be with you. I see some challenges in this. We were at the point, we had a meeting for impact bargaining on the 7 additional sort of guidelines we were asking to be put in place for custodians that would, give a little bit more power to the building leader. And I guess we came down to one sentence, and although the steward of the union agreed to the sentence, the union rep seemed to want to take it further towards Boston. That being said, I do think the building principals should be able to have basically total control over the people that work in their building, but there's layers to this in terms of the direct supervision would be the principal, but is there an overseer of all the custodians? And it's just, we'd have to look at a lot of things.
So we
But it
should
could
at
all
least
be worked
explore
out over time.
Just-
What'd
So
you
we
say?
should explore it,
We should,
obviously, yeah.
well, I think
Patty.
it's worth exploring.
This is something Patty wants to do, I think.
How much of a kickback from the town? I know we had this discussion when we were going over the agreement between Department of Public Works and the school committee, that memorandum of understanding.
Right, right.
And this was an item I brought up at the time.
Right. I
Which
remember.
came as a surprise to Rodney.
Well, maybe, given some recent events and conversations we've had, at least in a, maybe genuine or not, in a casual way, he indicated that I see that the custodian should be with you.
Okay.
But that was just, off the cuff remark, so, sure.
Yeah.
Mm.
Well, yeah, I just think that, like you said, I think I certainly have an expectation as a school committee member that the staff in all of our schools are held to certain, to prescribed rules of behavior and interaction with kids. And I mean, I think that that's sort of what I expect as a school committee member. And I think having people that don't report to our building principals or you in our schools on a daily basis, if we can address that, I think it makes good sense, so.
Right.
I think that's state law too, isn't it? That everybody that works in a building reports to, one way or another, to the principal.
Ed reform from 1993.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. It was before my time.
I was there,
Are you
Joe.
sure?
I was there.
You were there.
He wrote it.
Thank you.
So, I guess I'm cautiously pessimistic, but hopeful that, this can get done sooner versus later. I think we probably should set up a subcommittee to work on this with the superintendent.
Not it.
What?
Not it.
Not
I
volunteer?
was involved in that before, so I'll continue on with it because I've been fairly committed to this whole situation.
Thank you, George.
All right.
Nicole will be my alternate.
There you go.
Nice try.
Are you interested, Chris?
No.
I think Jeff is probably.
Jeff is.
Yeah.
Jeff is?
Yeah, maybe
So
the
we
two
can-
that are on the finance working group.
We can have them. So
Yeah, sure.
we will, this is what happens when you don't show up, you get nominated.
Well, maybe we can roll it in to the finance working group as part of,
Their
Part
work?
of the
tasks
finance
we're
work, yeah,
doing.
because
Yeah.
it's going to be a budget
Yeah.
issue anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's gonna be
Oh,
huge.
perfect.
I like the way you think.
I like that.
I love it.
Okay. So we'll get tasked to
What
the
am I thinking
finance
wrong?
task
working group.
to work on that. Okay. Next item, 12.2, George, House Bill 610 update.
House Bill 610. Apparently, the members of the United States Senate and the United States Congress read my letter because in the budget, not budget reconciliation, but in the funding bill that came out 2 weeks ago, they basically ditched everything that Secretary DeVos wanted. School vouchers went by the wayside. They increased, I think, more to special ed funding and a couple of other things that went completely counter to everything that was in my letter of items to be concerned about. Basically, the Congress just ditched the whole thing, so you're
Okay.
welcome.
Excellent.
Nice work, George.
Good job, George.
All right.
Where's the press when you need it?
No kidding.
I'll put it in the note.
Thank you.
All right.
Schmidt 2020.
There you go. 12.3, 1A,
Just as
Strategic Financial Roadmap. Do we have an update?
Oh, jeez.
That's you, George.
Financial roadmap, yes, I have a question generally about all of these. When are we going to bring all of this stuff forward to the committee as a whole, so that the committee as a whole knows what?
I think each
Procedures.
committee can choose to share, like Dawn's going to be sharing something out of the efficiency and effectiveness group. Nicole basically shared out of that. So whenever you want, and basically the library and the sign were discussed at our last financial working group, so in a way we shared a little bit there. I
Mhm.
think we're at the point of sort of establishing our parameters for our multi-year plan. Now we're going to do a little bit with the custodians and sort of as we get more information from the survey in terms of ideas people have, that could land in a discussion
Okay.
with your group because of finances.
What about things that would have to be voted on by the committee?
Need to
If
be
there
brought-
are such items.
Have-
As we finish them.
Yeah,
Whenever
as
you
you finish them, you should
Right.
bring them to the committee.
Okay, so we have.
We meet every 2 weeks.
We do?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Because every
Except
one
for
of
when
your.
it snows, or might
Thank
snow.
you for sharing.
Every one of the working groups is advisory, so you come here and make
It's after
recommendations.
nine.
Okay, well, there's one recommendation that we should, that I'll throw out right now, and this was Darlene, in terms of signing warrants. And she would like to come up with a plan that on weeks that we do not meet, that she would have warrants ready for signature on a Wednesday morning, for lack of anything
So
better.
it's always a Wednesday.
It'll always be a Wednesday that warrants
Sign.
would be available for signing. It would make life easier for her and probably for all of us.
Yeah,
So
other
I-
districts do that. I know Sandwich does all their warrants on one day.
So I don't know if we have to vote on that as a committee, or?
No, that's
No.
operational.
That's on her.
That's operational, okay, considered it operated on.
Yep, every Wednesday.
Every Wednesday.
Every Wednesday she'll have them. Okay, cool. All right,
There's
anything
some other
else?
stuff, but that can wait.
Can't wait for the first time we go in there on a Wednesday and they're not ready.
No, that's
I'm
not gonna
catch it.
happen.
I'm gonna catch it.
I doubt that you'll find that.
I know,
All right. Next one is 1B in regard to protocols to improve efficiency and effectiveness.
It's these two handouts you have.
Yeah, so we had discussed at a previous meeting about putting together a nomination ballot, which is what the formal name of it would be.
Right here.
Yeah, I do.
That will enable individuals to voice their selections
Do you need it?
in regard to elected positions, subcommittees, or liaison assignments that they are interested in for the coming term. So the first page you have is an actual copy of the form. And then, obviously, with any forms have to come instructions of how to carry it out. So we put together a reorganization protocol. So prior to the, I'll just quickly read through this, but prior to the annual reorganization of the school committee in May of each year, members of the committee, including any newly elected members, will be provided by the superintendent with access to a nomination ballot, enabling the members to select which of the following, if any, that they are interested and want to be considered for the coming elected term. And so A, B, and C are each of the positions that are on the form. Number 2, each committee member will submit in confidence the completed nomination ballot to the superintendent no later than 3 p.m. on the day before the school committee has scheduled for reorganization to occur. This way, item 3, the superintendent will have time then to prepare a consolidated nomination ballot reflecting all of the individual responses. Number 4, after the opening of the school committee meeting scheduled for reorganization, before any other business or action, superintendent will distribute the consolidated nomination ballot to each of the committee members. The chair, yeah. Okay, so I don't need to read it.
Thank you,
That's fine.
Chris.
Thank you,
Yeah,
Chris.
I pretty
So
much got
I guess
this.
any questions in regard to this?
Do we exit out or fill it in completely?
I have a question, Don.
Yeah.
So,
I'm sorry.
what happens if, with respect to the committee assignments, or subcommittee positions, or liaison positions, if,
So
are you
that's
anticipating my question?
Yes, that's covered under item 11 that you didn't let me read, but.
No,
Touche?
that
Can you go ahead and start over,
that
Don?
doesn't address my question.
It doesn't address
What's
the
your
question.
question?
No.
Okay,
So,
what's your question?
So what happens if nobody wants to be on the curriculum subcommittee?
Then someone, we actually, the chair would assign somebody.
Okay, so it's okay, like, we just indicated sort of our first preference, and then we're gonna discuss it during the, this just helps provide some direction for you, or
For-
whoever
for-
the chair
for
is.
the chair.
Yeah, got it.
Right.
Okay.
I had
It
the
will
same
create a
question
more
earlier.
efficient
Yeah.
meeting.
In 11, if you read it, it says that the chair will determine if a consensus cannot be met.
Which in theory is.
Because I
the
had
wa-
kind of the same question.
No one raising their hand.
Which is the way, in theory, it works currently?
Yeah,
If no one, but we've never,
you never had nobody,
we've
okay.
never had nobody.
And are these, is this our current list? I didn't realize, who's our boosters liaison right now?
You.
You?
I am?
You know, I had that on another sheet. I had all the current ones.
This you.
It's on my desk.
I can't figure out who the boosters one is.
I didn't think anyone took it. Like,
I thought it was you.
No, there's a name next to everyone and an alternate.
But you're sure that
Must be
this
Jeff.
is, because I thought that there were a couple things that when we did assignments, my first meeting, that there were a few things that we like waived off, like that didn't.
Didn't require an.
Yeah.
It's on my desk, so when
Okay.
we go back, I'll find it.
It better not be me, because I don't know anything. I haven't heard anything about that. And the other thing is that the, see, I feel like we adjusted these because we don't have a liaison to the tribe and a liaison to Indian education.
Well,
I'm
it's the
just,
same.
Well, you're the Indian education liaison.
I know, but that's what I mean. Isn't it one thing, not two separate things?
Oh,
It's.
I thought there,
it
I'm just saying, I
derived
think,
into two separate
I think the
things.
shorter this list is,
I think the
You
Indian
get-
Ed, though, has
they're
to
two
do with the
separate.
grant.
It does, and they
And the
do,
requirements
they
of the
consider
grant.
themselves quite separate, I believe.
oh, okay. All right, gotcha. I mean, I know I do both, but I thought it was just one
Yeah,
thing
I think-
that I was
I
doing.
think it's based, if I read the grant correctly, that Mrs. DeBoer wrote. for
Who's
me.
CPAC?
I am.
Oh, and who's sick bank?
Chris.
Feel free to take it if you want.
All right, I just don't know. Why don't I never hear about it, either of these?
They're
Was that today?
comfy assignments, there's nothing of it has to be done there, so.
We had a sick bank meeting.
How many meetings of the sick bank have
Oh,
you
no,
had?
there's a lot.
Oh,
A
it's
lot.
a
I'm not
lot
going to get
this
into
year.
it.
Well, this
A lot
does,
this year.
this is kind of a process question. I know it's after 9 o'clock, but
Sure.
we don't have any other time to talk about this. So one of the things that came up with the collaborative meeting, so what I'm interested in is when we are these liaison roles,
Yep.
we have very little opportunity to really communicate back to the board in that role, you know? And so sometimes I kind of insist because, oh, I know the meeting's almost over and in 2 minutes I'm gonna tell you what happened at the collaborative meeting last week. But one of the other, I think it was Nauset, Judy Lindahl, Eastham, she puts the collaborative minutes in the packet for the school committee so that at least she knows that her school committee members can read the minutes from that meeting.
Yeah.
So I was just thinking what we could do in our liaison roles is when there are meetings, at minimum, we should give them to Gail for the packet. And then that way, we're sort of more broadly sharing out, even if we don't have time on the agenda, and then we don't play short shrift to these roles.
No, I mean, that's a great idea. I mean, we always have on the agenda.
Right.
For committee reports. But if you have something that you can share as part of the packet, then that would
Okay.
be excellent.
And I guess I'm asking that you guys do the same for whatever your liaison roles are,
Yeah, I think that should be for everybody.
to the extent that they have minutes or
Right.
something, you know, like if there's a product that comes out of those meetings, it might be just, because then it could help me learn what those are.
I mean, one of the differences, though, is you're actually on the collaborative
Yeah.
versus the other roles where they're basically observers or real liaisons.
Right.
Yeah.
But like the Board of Selectmen, when they have their meetings, do they do minutes afterwards?
Yes, they do.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Finance committee does.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It would just be nice to, I think, include those in our packets. And then maybe even more people in town will see them too. I don't know. Let's just think about it.
we would need to get those committees to share their minutes.
Right.
Well, the public, once they approve them, there'd just be a lag.
Yeah.
Right.
Somewhat.
Yeah. Okay. Anyway, it's just something to consider. Not that our packets need to be bigger, but. Sorry.
So,
There are two primary positions for each subcommittee. I'm not following that sentence.
Basically.
Three parentheses.
And basically, this is 2 people on each of these.
right, there's a primary and an alternate.
Oh, maybe I should-
Bingo.
There,
Sorry.
did I word that
Yes.
wrong?
No, that's correct. Now I understand.
Okay, thanks for doing that.
There's 2 people on the negotiations committee, then an
Right, right.
alternate. Got it.
So when you do this, whenever the date, according to the other protocol, is, you'll get it as a Google form. And then you just fill it in, and then it'll help, it just creates a sheet consolidated. So you're not gonna get a paper copy unless you strongly desire one, but you're
So-
going to get an email.
So the biggest change besides completing this is then when it comes to the reorganization meeting, this consolidated ballot with people's names on it will be presented and voted in total as a nomination, and then people will get to vote for the elected positions.
Should I give her the example?
Yes, go for it.
So Patty and I both want to run for chair. And so, I know, it's going to be, yeah.
I thought
It's gonna be awesome.
It's going to be awesome, right?
gloves are
Because our
coming on.
meetings will end at 7.
Yeah.
But we both
Yes.
run for chair, and so, okay, that's bad. Dawn and I run for chair. Patty compiles it into the nomination ballot, right? Someone's going to make a motion to approve the ballot as the nominations and second that. So that's done. Now, when you're voting, you're gonna vote by name, meaning if you want Don, you're gonna say Don when you're voting for chair. If you want Hope, because everyone else is gonna say Hope, you
course.
say Hope.
Of course.
That's how, instead of a yay, nay,
Yeah.
you're voting by person's name. Does
Right.
that make sense?
Yeah.
It took us a long time to figure
it
this
did.
out today.
But-
Congratulations.
But that way, it will eliminate the possibility of ties.
Yeah.
There are 5 people voting, yeah.
Yeah.
We'd be-
Right.
Yeah,
If
and
I
the
could-
awkward, I wanna nominate this person, or I don't.
But do
wanna
we have to say it all at one time? Like everybody has to,
It's
so
a
you
public-
Oh,
can't,
no, no, no,
It's a
no,
public
no.
vote.
like everybody
you
say
go
their name
first.
now.
No,
Hope.
it's roll call,
It's roll call.
and you're the new kid on the block.
I get to vote first all the time. It's fun.
Was there any, I know I brought this up once before, rotation and all of us, that sort of thing? What is, I know all of the other committees, finance, selectmen have a set procedure for rotations.
Is it set, or is it something they just kind of do?
Finance committee is set,
Is it really?
yes.
Well,
They're
that's,
not elected either, though.
yeah,
No, they're-
we actually, we reviewed this in the policy manual,
Yeah.
which is 1C, but, they,
Sorry.
Yeah.
I'm ahead
But-
of my time again.
But no, there's no, like, the way that we're doing it is the way that it's outlined in our we don't have something that says the chair must rotate. We say that there will be an annual
Election.
election.
And it's up to the committee, whoever they
Because
want
we
to.
can, if we can continue to vote the same person in as chair if they're willing and we're amenable to that.
I think this group talked about it too, George, and I don't know if it was when you were on or not, brought up the
Okay.
rotation versus the yearly
Yeah.
option, and seemed to feel like they wanted the option piece, so that you weren't tied in.
You weren't, I'm sorry?
Tied into
Oh, tied in.
what's the thing in England when the king gets the crown?
Ascension.
Thank you. So late. That's what I remember hearing from folks as they were
Okay.
speaking.
So the plan would be to move forward with this then for the upcoming reorganization in May.
Great.
Okay?
My only recommendation would be to put a check mark there, negotiate subcommittees. I'm done.
Oh, I can only nominate myself, I can't nominate you. Aha.
Oh, that's true. You can't nominate somebody else.
You can?
You can't.
You
Yeah.
can't, that's what I thought.
You can vote on someone else, but you can't vote.
All right, so we,
All right.
Now, what if someone wants to decline a nomination? I suppose that happens after the
Yeah.
ballot's accepted, okay.
Yeah.
Normal procedure.
You
Yeah.
change your name,
Say-
your
Okay.
mind.
Yeah, they can
'Cause
always
You won't be
decline.
nominated if you didn't fill out your chart.
But even if you're
That's a good point.
You can only not go for whoever.
can you vote for yourself?
Yes,
Yes.
you should vote for yourself.
That played into many of our scenarios.
Yes.
If you want to eliminate a tie, yes. Otherwise, it causes problems.
Oh, yeah, I see.
All right. Next item is 1C in regard to the policy guidance.
All right, am I taking this or are you taking this?
I'm good with you
Okay,
taking this.
I'm whipping through this. Okay, so what we decided to do with the policy manual is, with the contract with Mask, Jim has been coming in and we've had 3 meetings, so far. 4, 3?
Maybe 4.
4 meetings. And so what we've done is we've gone through each section of the policy manual, page by page. And what MASC did, that frankly is worth every penny we paid them, is they researched and identified the MASC policy and the Mashpee policy. And so if there was so we're either looking at them side by side. If they're the same, Jim indicates that and says these are the same. If we have it and MASC doesn't have it, he tells us that. And if there's something that MASC has that we don't, he says, you should really have this in your manual. So that's why everything on the right column, which Patty organized this really well to illustrate for you what each section was, and then what we did, the decision that we made. So I think at this point, we're not asking you to vote on anything. We're just giving you a sort of progress report. I think we're about halfway through, and maybe a little bit more, and we are going to finish it before the school year ends. So what we did, and then if we actually introduce something new that wasn't there before, that's your handout, the first one, which is sexual harassment. You'll see the page that starts with that. So if you see on your very first page of your handout for Section A, that corresponds to, we adopted MASC's version. This is new to the MPS policy manual. And then in some cases, we simply updated the sheet because there's a new legal reference, and MASC had the most current one, and so we just wanted to cover ourselves to make sure we had that. And then in some cases, if you flip through to, like I think it's the 4th handout. So this was in Section B, Board Governance and Operations. BJ is School Committee Legislative Program. So this was something that I thought that we were kind of intrigued about, that MASC had that we did not have. But it sounds to me like, especially over the last year, just the conversations, things you're interested in, George and Jeff. And it's basically this idea that we should be keeping ourselves informed of pending legislation and actively engage and communicate, a position from the schools on something, or, reach out to our legislative representatives to note our support or opposition to something that's being either planned in the State House or, Congress or whatever. And I think it was our State Senator Julian Sear who said that he was planning to visit Mashpee. When we saw him at the MASC legislative breakfast, he's making the rounds as kind of a newer-ish member.
Mm-hmm.
And
I believe he's coming on May 9th.
Oh.
Or maybe that's Vieira.
Yeah, he's the other.
Julian was supposed to come, I think he canceled, but we'll reschedule him. But I'm pretty sure now, when I think about it, it's David Vieira's coming on the 9th.
Oh, I'd like to be around for that.
It's a school committee meeting.
Oh, he's here. Oh.
No, he's coming to you.
Oh, I thought he was going to come like when school was in session and visit the schools and
We
see.
can arrange that.
Yeah, I thought that's what he meant.
Oh, both of them were coming to see you.
Oh.
Here.
Oh, okay.
Mhm.
So anyway, that was just an example of something that we didn't have in our manual that we're going to add. And then for anyone who has any heartburn about these decisions being made, in subcommittee, I say, check the policy box and you can have this job next year. Or
A lot of empty boxes.
yeah, or
A lot of empty boxes.
or of course, the old manual for reference will be sitting on a shelf in the superintendent's office. And so because of this nice little crosswalk we have here, you can go find exactly what we took out and see exactly what we put in. But I would say our general principles are cover ourselves legally, simplify where possible, and that's pretty much it, right? Is there anything else?
No, I just want to say, like Hope and I were rehashing a little earlier, and correct me if you're not thinking the same thing. But what we're going to do is keep providing these updates, and then basically leaving it in the laps of each individual committee member to say, hey, I want to go look at this one and see what they're talking about and bring it up at the next meeting, because we're not going to bring every single policy.
Thank God.
Every change. What we plan on doing is presenting it all as one big change,
As a
give an
slate,
update.
yeah.
Yep, give one big change, have a first reading, and then you up to the next meeting or two, we'll decide. And then we just vote on all the changes at once. So if you're really concerned, go along with us as we present the information and try to bring it up then rather than.
We ain't going back.
We'd be voting on hundreds of
Yeah,
policies.
yeah.
It would just be- yeah.
So these are the 10 new to Mashpee's policy manual
Mhm.
as we are right now. And then the current policy manual is online as well, so if you want to.
You could find the reference,
You
yeah.
can also look there in terms of.
And the legal citations are included in all of them as well.
Yeah.
So you can match it up to the Mass General laws as well.
Yeah, I have to say, that was really a steal. What Mask is doing and what we'll get as a
Oh,
result
yeah.
of it, it's just, I
Absolutely.
mean, he does all the preparation. Everything is just, we walk in and all we do is sit down and look at old version, new version, old version, new version, old version, new version. We make a couple jokes and we have some laughs, and just old version, new version.
I can hear you.
All right, excellent. All right, and we covered 2A already, so unless, Nicole, you had anything else thought of you wanted to add for 2A?
No.
Okay, good. Under new business then, 13.1, we have a request to approve a middle school trip to
I move to
DC.
approve the middle school trip to Washington DC, June 9th through June 12th, 2019.
As outlined
Yes, as outlined.
on page 21.
Yeah.
And this is the annual trip that the 8th grade takes, so,
Yes.
all right.
Awesome trip.
Any questions or comments? Hearing none. Nicole?
Yes.
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 And yes, unanimous.
So I just realized this is the trip my son's gonna be going on.
Oh, wow. Next is a note here in regard to a joint meeting with the Wampanoag Tribal Council on June the 6th.
So that's your June already scheduled meeting, and we have reached out, and that date works as well for the tribal council. So it would be similar to what we did on October 4th, a regular meeting for us, but it'll be a great opportunity for us to sort of recap our progress this year with our partnership. So I think we're good to go.
Yeah.
Does anyone object to having the June 6th meeting at the
Nope.
tribal headquarters?
All right, so
We're
Great.
good.
consensus, we move forward.
Excellent.
All right. Next item was committee reports. Nicole, do you have anything?
I do. So the collaborative met on just last week because we were snowed out for the collaborative meeting. A couple of items. One specific to your comment about special education. Judy Lindell from Eastham also said that one of the things that she's said an item for town meeting is the special education budget called out separately from the school budget and letting people know that our special education expenses are not discretionary or optional, and that we as school districts should be messaging that more to our respective towns so that they develop a better understanding of special education costs and the requirements of our public districts. So I'm looking at you because I know this is,
Yeah, I have no experience. I don't like to put out special education to pit it, sometimes that can pit it against.
well, but I think it's,
Messaging needs to happen.
yeah, I think it's part and parcel to our discussion about always having an agenda item at town meeting that talks about the schools so that people understand what their money's going towards and all the positive things that are happening. Are you on the agenda for town meeting in May?
I don't think so. I think we thought that had to do with the budget. I mean, if we were contentious about
If
the
we were
budget.
contentious about the budget, we definitely would be.
Oh, I thought we were gonna do it regardless.
Well, we can explore that. I have no problem doing that.
Yeah, I mean, it could be it could be you, it could be anybody, but I just, I think it's a good opportunity to talk about something about the schools and it's the
And
largest.
is that the like, how do people respond to that? Like, there's always, it seems to be very sort of driven by the warrant, like, I mean, other than a singing group from the school, that's all we currently have scheduled.
Yeah, well, we don't need to discuss it now, I just wanted to mention it. Also, I was thinking about the new superintendent in Falmouth, Lori Dewar. She's moving here from Delaware, and I thought it might be interesting to get our school committees and superintendents together for some sort of meet and greet or something to just welcome her and they have 5 people running in Falmouth, so I suggest we do it after the election. For 3
For how many
seats.
seats?
Oh, for 3
right.
seats?
Yeah.
Well, that's not bad.
Yeah, but, well, as opposed to ours, which is uncontested. So, I mean, I think there might be some new faces. So maybe,
Testament to George.
yeah.
Yeah, congrats.
And then the only other thing was we were going over the 19 budget, and they were saying that, I just thought it was interesting data point for you guys, that half of the collaborative budget is transportation, about $7.7 million, and 4.2 million of that is regular education. So that's now Bourne, it's Mashpee, it's Monomoy, and DY signed a contract with 5 Star. You knew that, okay.
He knows everything.
I know
Yeah.
everything.
And then the only other thing I mentioned to Patty that I wanted to just share with the board is I was talking about in executive session, we had to open and close to keep quorum and all this stuff. So the Cracker Barrel kind of came after executive session. It was kind of a mess, but there weren't many people left at that point, but we were talking about the Southport Falcons and some of the stuff we're doing in Mashpee with Falcon Friends and things like that. And in Nauset, they do a one-day open house in the spring, towards the end of the school year, where they allow community members to register for classes with the kids in the schools. And they're query, they do it in advance, they query everybody, and you select which classrooms are going to be kind of open for visitors. But it allows people to go into our elementary classrooms and kind of sit down with the kids and spend, a class or two with them. Same with the high schools, like we could showcase AP offerings or, yeah, things that are any kinds of things. And so I just thought, given our focus on outreach and engagement and such the positive momentum we have right now, like it might be a good, I don't know if that's something we can do this school year, but I know that I would like to reach out to that superintendent and maybe get a little more information about how they manage that, because it's not exactly a light lift, I don't think, but we are we only have these 3 schools and they're all close together, so it might be easy. So that's all.
Okay, very good. George, do you have anything?
Yeah, Wellness Committee met today. We talked quite a bit about vaping. I know Stacy made a presentation to you guys while I was listening on the phone. Now I got a chance to see everything. Fascinating as far as I'm concerned. And Sunday at Falmouth High School, 12 to 12:35 is lunch, and then after that is a woman by the name of Ruth Potee who is speaking. If you haven't heard her, it's be interesting to go to. You do need to let Stacy know rather quickly, because the lunch reservations, that type thing. We are almost 1 year now into our open houses. June is the 1-year anniversary of having the open houses.
The drop-in night?
At the drop-in night at the Mashpee Community Health Center. And I passed this on to Dr. Hanscom about Alateen. Alateen is willing to put on free seminars, classes, and that sort of thing in the lower grade levels, 7th, 8th, that sort of thing. They're free. And resource people could identify those that might be having problems with alcohol in their home and refer these kids to these type meetings.
So I'm going to connect with Mrs. Cat to have her reach out to them.
It might work. it's free. That is,
Keep saying that word.
Yeah.
yeah. No charge also works for
He's
me.
drawn towards everything that's free.
Complimentary.
He is an accountant.
Pro bono.
That, I'm done.
Chris, do you have anything?
I do not.
And I don't think I have anything for this meeting.
Is there any public comment?
Any public
You want
comment?
public
You're still
comment?
here.
We have one at
Public comment?
8:40.
Oh, how delightful.
Which is-
Thank you. No, thank you for letting me sit in.
Oh,
Hey,
You're
well, thank
welcome.
you for staying.
Yeah.
Well, was this or go home?
Okay, I make a motion that we adjourn to go into executive session, not to return to open meeting.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Yes.
Nicole? George?
Yes, yes.
And yes, unanimous.